A poor little black girl from a rental apartment claiming her daddy's a four-star general? That's the biggest joke I've heard all year. Mrs. Patricia Henderson snatched the essay from Maya Williams's trembling hands. She held it up like garbage, making sure every student in the classroom could see. Then she ripped it in half, and again, and again. Piece by piece, she shredded the girl's tribute to her father while staring directly into Maya's eyes. The torn fragments fluttered down onto Maya's desk like ashes falling on a grave. At this elite high school, Maya's skin color and her silence made her the perfect target. Labeled a liar, a nobody, pushed to believe she deserved nothing more than shame and poverty. But what Mrs. Henderson didn't know what this entire school was about to discover was that the ground would soon shake, because Maya's father was coming home. And when he walked through those doors, wearing 4 stars on his shoulders, every single person who had touched his daughter would wish they had never been born. Subscribe now and stay with us until the very end to witness the most satisfying reckoning you've ever seen. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from. We want to see just how far Maya's story travels across the world. Now let us take you back to where it all began. The assignment was simple. Write about a hero in your life. Maya Williams had waited 3 weeks for this moment. She had watched Bradley Crawford read his polished essay about his father, Senator Richard Crawford, and how the great man had passed some bill about highway funding. Mrs. Henderson had practically glowed with admiration. The class had applauded like Bradley had just solved world hunger. Now it was Maya's turn. She smoothed the paper in her hands. Her fingers trembled not from fear, but from the weight of every word she had written. This wasn't just an essay. This was her heart on paper. Mrs. Patricia Henderson's voice sliced through the quiet classroom. Maya Williams, you're next. The warmth Henderson had shown Bradley evaporated instantly. Her tone turned cold, sharp, dismissive. Maya stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. She felt the weight of 23 pairs of eyes pressing down on her, some curious, most already mocking. She took a breath and began. My hero is my father, General Marcus Williams. A ripple of whispers spread through the room. Bradley let out a loud, mocking laugh. Maya ignored him. He wears 4 stars on his shoulders, but he carries the weight of the world in his heart. He has served the United States Army for 32 years. She paused, steadying herself. From him, I learned that honor is a quiet thing. It is the silence of a house when a father is away protecting the freedom of people who will never know his name. Something shifted in the room. Even the students ready to mock her went quiet. Maya's words carried power raw and undeniable. People think the stars on his shoulder mean power, but I know they mean burden. I see him sit in the dark when he comes home thinking about the soldiers who didn't make it back. I see him iron his own uniform because he says discipline is a form of gratitude. She was almost finished. Almost there. He is my hero, not because he commands armies, but because he serves them. And even though my mother is gone and our house feels empty, he fills it with the promise that doing the right thing matters even when it hurts. Maya lowered her paper. Silence. Then Mrs. Henderson spoke. Stop. The word hit like a slap. Maya's heart stuttered. Ma'am? Henderson pushed back her chair. The legs scraped against the floor with an ugly screech. She walked around her desk slowly, deliberately. Her heels clicked against the tile like a countdown. She stopped inches from Maya's desk. Her eyes traveled down Maya's body, lingering on the scuffed sneakers, the frayed cuffs of her hoodie, the backpack held together with safety pins. Maya. Henderson's voice dripped with false sweetness. This is a creative writing assignment, not a fantasy workshop. Maya's stomach clenched. It's not fantasy, Mrs. Henderson. It's the truth. The truth. Henderson laughed. The sound was dry and cold, a sound designed to humiliate. She turned to face the class, gesturing at Maya like she was pointing out a defect. Class, let this be a lesson in realism. Henderson clasped her hands in front of her, adopting her lecturing pose. Generals in the United States Army are the elite. They are men of immense stature and connection. They live in historic mansions in Georgetown or in grand quarters on military bases. Their children attend private academies in Switzerland or Washington, D.C. She turned back to Maya. Her eyes narrowed into slits. They do not live in rental apartments on the south side of town. Henderson stepped closer. So close Maya could smell her cloying perfume. And they certainly do not send their daughters to school looking like this. The words hung in the air. Henderson didn't use a slur. She didn't need to. Every student in that room understood exactly what she meant. You are poor. You are black. You are nothing. My father doesn't care about material things, Maya said, forcing her voice to stay steady. He cares about duty, about service, about enough. Henderson's mask cracked. The polite teacher disappeared. Something ugly took her place. It is pathetic, Maya. I understand that coming from a broken home is difficult. I understand the temptation to invent a father figure to fill the void in your sad little life. Maya's hands curled into fists. But to stand here in my classroom, Henderson continued, her voice rising, and lie to my face, to mock the service of real military men by claiming their rank for your own pathetic ego. She was practically spitting now. It is disgusting. I am not lying. Maya's voice rose to match Henderson's. My father is a 4-star general. He's currently serving on a classified... Henderson moved fast. She snatched the essay from Maya's hands with such force that Maya gasped. Before Maya could react, Henderson held up the paper, Maya's tribute to her father, every word she had labored over, and tore it in half. The sound of ripping paper echoed through the silent classroom. Henderson put the halves together, ripped again, and again, and again. She never broke eye contact with Maya. Not once. The pieces fluttered down onto Maya's desk. You will rewrite this assignment, Henderson declared, brushing off her hands like she had touched something filthy. And this time write about something real. Write about your mother's struggles. Write about the reality of your neighborhood. She leaned in close. Her next words were barely a whisper, meant only for Maya's ears. Stick to what you know, and do not appropriate the lives of your betters. Maya stood frozen. Her heart pounded against her ribs. The injustice burned in her throat like acid. Every instinct screamed at her to fight back, to scream, to make Henderson pay. But she didn't cry. She refused to give this woman her tears. Slowly, Maya sat down. She stared at the shredded remains of her essay. The word honor was visible on one piece, sacrifice on another, hero on a third. The bell rang. Students scrambled for the door, desperate to escape the suffocating tension. They kept their eyes down as they passed Maya's desk. No one wanted to be associated with the target. Henderson returned to her desk and immediately began grading other papers, dismissing Maya's existence entirely. Maya waited until the room was nearly empty. Then she began gathering the pieces of her essay one by one, trying to salvage what she could. A shadow fell across her desk. She looked up. Bradley Crawford stood over her, his leather messenger bag slung over one shoulder, his varsity jacket gleaming. For one brief, foolish moment, Maya thought he might say something kind. Bradley looked at the scraps of paper on her desk. Then he looked at Maya. A slow smile spread across his face. 4 stars. He laughed softly, shaking his head. Come on, Williams. You should have aimed lower. Maybe a sergeant. That would have been believable for someone like you. He raised his expensive leather shoe, and he stepped on the pile of torn paper, grinding his heel directly into the word honor. Then he walked away, whistling, leaving a muddy footprint on the last piece of Maya's dignity. Maya stared at the ruined paper. Her jaw tightened. Something inside her hardened into steel. News travels fast in high school. Malice travels faster. By lunch, the story had mutated into something monstrous. Maya Williams wasn't just a girl whose essay got torn up. She was a pathological liar. A fraud. a charity case who had finally been exposed. Bradley Crawford didn't just let rumors spread. He designed them. He sat at the center table in the cafeteria, the spot reserved for varsity captains and student council royalty holding court, like a king. "It's actually really sad," Bradley said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. His voice oozed false sympathy. "My dad's office looked into it. There is no General Williams. The girl's mom was a maid who got fired for stealing silverware from some diplomat's house. Maya's just confused, you know. She thinks if she lies hard enough, she'll become one of us." His audience laughed. The lie was elegant. It played perfectly into existing prejudices. It transformed Maya from a victim into a villain. And villains deserve no sympathy. Across the cafeteria, Maya sat alone at a small circular table near the trash cans. Her back was against the wall, a habit her father had drilled into her since childhood. Always know who's behind you. She opened her Tupperware container of rice and beans. She tried to focus on the book in front of her, The Art of War, by Sun Tzu, but she could feel the eyes on her. She could hear the whispers crawling across the room like insects. Bradley watched her from his throne. He hated her, not just because she was black, not just because she was poor. Those were convenient excuses. He hated her because she was calm. After everything that had happened, Henderson destroying her essay, the whole school laughing at her, she sat there eating her leftovers like a queen holding court. She hadn't broken. That morning, Bradley's father had called, not to ask about school, not to say he was proud. Senator Crawford had called to scream at Bradley about a scratch on the Porsche. "You're careless, Bradley. You're soft. Do you have any idea what I sacrificed to keep this family on top?" Bradley had stood there gripping his phone, feeling small, feeling worthless. Now watching Maya Williams sit there with more dignity in her poverty than he had ever felt in his wealth, Bradley wanted to destroy something. He stood up. The cafeteria went quiet. When Bradley Crawford moved, people paid attention. He grabbed a carton of chocolate milk from a freshman's tray as he passed. The kid didn't dare protest. Bradley walked toward Maya's table. Slowly, deliberately, like a shark circling prey. Maya didn't look up until his shadow fell across her book. She closed it carefully. She didn't flinch. She didn't scramble to escape. She just looked up at him with dark eyes that gave nothing away. "Can I help you?" she asked. Bradley smiled. It was a predator's smile. "Just checking on the charity case. Heard about your dad, the famous general." He made air quotes with his fingers. "That's a heavy rank for a ghost to carry." Maya's expression didn't flicker. "My father is real, Bradley. More real than your manners." Gasps rippled through the nearby tables. Someone dropped a fork. Nobody talked to Bradley Crawford like that. Nobody. The smile froze on Bradley's face. A vein pulsed in his temple. "You've got a big mouth for someone who doesn't belong here." His voice dropped lower, darker. "Mrs. Henderson was right about you. You're dirty. You pollute this place with your lies." He lifted the milk carton. "My dad always says liars need to be cleansed." He turned his wrist. Chocolate milk poured down onto Maya's head. It splashed into her hair, ran down her face, dripped onto her hoodie and her open book. Cold. Humiliating. 300 students watched. Not one of them moved. Maya sat frozen. Under the table, her hands curled into fists so tight, her fingernails drew blood from her palms. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "Discipline. Do not engage. If you fight them on their terms, you lose." "Oops." Bradley tossed the empty carton onto her food. "My hand slipped." He waited. He needed her to cry. He needed her to scream, to throw a punch, to give him any excuse to destroy her completely. He needed to see her break so he could feel whole. Maya reached for a napkin. Slowly, deliberately, she wiped her eyes. She stood up. Milk dripped from her chin onto the floor. She picked up her tray. "Is that all, Bradley?" Her voice was steady, almost bored. "Or does your father need to buy you a bigger audience?" Absolute silence. Bradley's face turned red. He had won the physical battle. She was covered in chocolate milk, humiliated in front of everyone, but somehow he had lost. She had taken his best shot and brushed it off like an inconvenience. "Get out of my face!" he hissed, stepping into her space, using his height to intimidate. "Before I make you regret that smart mouth." Maya didn't flinch. She walked past him, not running, walking, shoulders back, head high, like a soldier returning from battle. She dumped her ruined lunch in the trash, placed her tray on the stack, and walked out through the double doors. Bradley kicked her empty chair. It flew across the floor and crashed into the wall. "What are you looking at?" he screamed at the staring students. The cafeteria erupted back into noise, everyone desperate to pretend they hadn't just witnessed what they'd witnessed. Maya made it to the second-floor bathroom before she stopped breathing. She rushed to the sink, turned on the cold water, splashed it on her face again and again, trying to wash away the sticky milk and the burning humiliation. She gripped the edges of the sink until her knuckles went white. She looked up at her reflection. Water dripped from her lashes. Brown streaks of chocolate milk still clung to her hair. "A general's daughter doesn't cry," she whispered to the mirror. Her voice trembled. "Hold the line, Maya, hold the line." She reached for a paper towel. That's when she saw it. Scrawled across the mirror in bright red lipstick, the letters jagged and aggressive. "Get out." Maya's blood turned to ice. Someone had followed her here. Someone had written this while she was washing her face just feet away. She spun around. The bathroom was empty, but she wasn't safe. She understood that now. She was being hunted. The next morning, Maya walked into school wearing her cleanest hoodie and holding her head high. She didn't know that a trap had already been set. In the girls' locker room before gym class, a girl named Kimberly stood clutching something in her shaking hands. A gold watch. Heavy, expensive, diamond bezel that caught the light. Bradley's father's Rolex. "I can't do this," Kimberly had whispered when Bradley handed it to her in the hallway. "Bradley, this is your dad's graduation gift. It's worth more than my mom's car." "It's a prop, Kimberly." Bradley had checked his reflection in a trophy case. "It doesn't matter what it costs. It matters what it buys. And today it buys me a conviction." "But what if—" "Do it. Or you can kiss your spot at the homecoming table goodbye. Your choice." Now Kimberly stood in the locker room, watching Maya open her locker and shove her gym uniform inside. Maya's backpack sat unattended on the bench for just a moment. Kimberly's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She waited until Maya turned away. One quick motion. The watch slid into the front pocket of Maya's backpack. Done. 2 minutes later, the locker room door slammed open. Every girl froze. Mrs. Patricia Henderson stood in the doorway like an executioner. Principal Thomas Morrison lurked behind her, looking uncomfortable but complicit. "Nobody move," Henderson announced. "We have received a report of a theft, a very serious theft." Maya's stomach dropped. Every instinct her father had taught her screamed one word: ambush. Henderson didn't search the wealthy girls near the mirrors. She didn't check the cheerleaders' lockers. She walked in a straight line through the crowd, directly toward Maya. "Maya Williams." Henderson stopped 2 feet away. "Empty your bag." Maya stared at her. "Why?" "Because Bradley Crawford is missing his watch. And strangely enough, several students saw you near his locker before first period this morning." "That's a lie. I haven't been anywhere near his locker. I avoid him." Defensiveness. Henderson's smile was sharp. "A classic symptom of guilt. Hand over the bag. Now. Or I call the police." Maya's mind raced. She was innocent. She had nothing to hide. Refusing would make her look guilty. Cooperating would prove her innocence. The truth is always the best defense. Her father's voice again. She handed over her backpack. Henderson took it with barely concealed eagerness. She didn't search randomly. She went straight to the front pocket as if she knew exactly where to look. Her hand emerged holding the Rolex, gold gleaming under fluorescent lights. The locker room gasped. "I didn't put that there." Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. "Mrs. Henderson, I did not take that. Someone planted it." Henderson looked at the watch, then at Maya. Something personal flickered in her eyes, something beyond this moment, beyond this school. "Of course you didn't," Henderson whispered. "It's never your fault, is it? Always a setup, always someone else to blame." She stepped closer. Her perfume was suffocating. "You people." The words came out in a hiss, meant only for Maya. "You come into our schools. You walk our halls acting like you own the place, but deep down, you're all the same." Maya couldn't breathe. "You see something shining, something golden that you can't afford." Henderson's eyes bored into her. "And you just have to take it. You want to steal our lives because yours are so empty." "I don't want his watch." Maya's voice shook with controlled fury. "I don't want his money. My father taught me that honor is worth more than what? Your father." Henderson laughed, a harsh cutting sound. "The imaginary general. You steal a watch to prove you're wealthy. You invent a father to prove you're worthy." She raised her voice for the whole room to hear. "You are a fraud, Maya Williams. A thief and a liar." Henderson turned to the watching girls, holding the watch up like a prosecutor displaying evidence. "Witness this. This is what happens when we lower our standards. This is what happens when we let them in." She grabbed Maya's arm. Her manicured nails dug into flesh hard enough to leave marks. "Principal's office, now." Maya stumbled as Henderson yanked her forward. She didn't fight back physically, that would end everything. But her eyes stayed dry. She walked with her head high, even as she was being marched out like a criminal. In the hallway, students parted like the Red Sea. Hundreds of eyes followed her. Whispers spread like wildfire. And then Maya saw him. Bradley Crawford leaned against the lockers surrounded by his teammates. He looked relaxed, almost bored. He wasn't searching for his stolen watch. He wasn't worried at all. He was watching the show. Their eyes met as Maya passed. Bradley didn't smirk. He didn't laugh. He did something worse. He looked at Mrs. Henderson, the adult who was supposed to protect students, and gave her a slow, deliberate wink. Mrs. Henderson tightened her grip on Maya's arm. And she gave Bradley a barely perceptible nod in return. The realization hit Maya like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a bully acting out. This wasn't just a racist teacher on a power trip. This was coordinated. The senator's son and the veteran teacher weren't just on the same side. They were partners. Principal Thomas Morrison's office smelled like expensive leather and cheap lies. The gold Rolex sat at the center of his desk, like evidence in a show trial. Morrison didn't look at Maya. He was already filling out paperwork. "The evidence is clear, Maya." He sighed heavily, performing reluctance. "Possession of stolen property. Grand larceny. Given the value of this watch, we should be calling the police." "Then call them." Maya's voice was tight. "Call the police. They'll fingerprint that watch. They'll see I never touched it. They'll check the locker room cameras. They'll find... We prefer to handle these matters internally." Morrison cut her off smoothly. "To protect your reputation." He picked up his phone. "We need to contact your parents. What's your father's number?" "General Marcus Williams." Maya recited the satellite line from memory. "He's currently deployed overseas." Morrison dialed. Put it on speaker. The phone rang. 1 ring, 2, 5, 10. Maya stared at the phone, willing her father to pick up. "Please, Dad. Please be there. Don't be in a briefing. Don't be in a blackout zone. You have reached a secure military line. The subscriber is currently unavailable. Please disconnect." The automated voice was a death sentence. Morrison hung up with poorly disguised relief. "Unavailable. Again." He shook his head with exaggerated pity. "You know I checked our records, Maya. We have no employment verification for any General Williams. just a P.O. box. He's on a classified mission. He can't always, or, Henderson interrupted from her corner, he doesn't answer because he knows what you are. She walked toward the desk, her heels clicking like a countdown. This behavior is textbook Principal Morrison. The theft, the pathological lying about her father's rank, the aggression. It all points to the same root cause. Morrison played his part. And what cause is that, Mrs. Henderson? A lack of moral foundation in the home. Specifically, Henderson's voice dripped with false sympathy. The absence of a maternal figure. Maya went rigid. The mother is likely absent, Henderson continued. Negligent. Perhaps she simply gave up and left. Without a mother to teach a young girl grace and humility and her proper place in society, the child becomes feral. She was warming to her theory now, enjoying herself. She reaches for shiny things to fill the void where a mother's love should be. Maya stopped breathing. They didn't know. They couldn't know about the sterile smell of the oncology ward at Walter Reed Hospital. The nights Maya spent holding a plastic bucket while chemotherapy ravaged her mother's beautiful, strong body. The last night 6 years ago now, when her mother, breathless and frail, had squeezed Maya's hand and whispered, "Be brave, my little soldier. Be good. Make me proud." Her mother wasn't negligent. Her mother was a saint who had fought death for 3 years just to see Maya finish elementary school. Henderson leaned down, her face inches from Maya's. "You think you stole that watch because you wanted money," she whispered. "No, you stole it because your mother never taught you that you aren't a princess." Her lips curled into something ugly. She probably wasn't much of a woman herself. Couldn't even keep a husband. Couldn't even raise a daughter who knows right from wrong. Something inside Maya snapped. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't a decision. It was 6 years of grief and rage exploding at once. Maya shot to her feet. Her chair crashed backward. "Shut up!" The scream ripped from her throat, raw and primal. "Don't you dare speak about her!" She slammed her hands on Morrison's desk, tears streaming down her face. "She was a saint. She didn't leave me. She was taken. She had cancer. She fought for 3 years just to stay alive, just to watch me grow up. And she lost. And you don't get to talk about her with your filthy mouth." Morrison shrank back in his chair. "Violence!" Henderson shrieked, jumping away. "Principal Morrison, do you see the aggression? She's unstable." "I'm defending her," Maya sobbed. "You don't know her. You don't get to—" "That is enough." Morrison grabbed his pen and the pink form already waiting on his desk. "Miss Williams, your outburst confirms everything Mrs. Henderson has reported. Violent conduct, threatening staff, destruction of school property." He scribbled his signature. "You are hereby suspended effective immediately, pending a board review for permanent expulsion." He thrust the paper at her. "Hand over your student ID." Maya stood there, chest heaving, the adrenaline fading into cold shock. She looked at the 2 adults in front of her, the coward behind his desk, the predator behind her pearls. Slowly, she reached into her pocket, pulled out her student ID, the one with the photo from her first day at Jefferson Academy, when she was still smiling, still hopeful. She dropped it on the desk. It landed next to the Rolex with a soft click. "You can keep the card." Her voice was dead. "But you will never destroy who I am." She looked directly at Henderson. "My father is coming, and God help you when he does. Get out." Morrison wouldn't meet her eyes. "Before I call security." Maya turned and walked out. Through the office. Past the secretary who stared with pity but said nothing. Through the heavy double doors of the main entrance. The midday sun hit her face like a hammer. She was alone. No school. No phone connection to her father. No one in the world who believed her. She began the long walk home, her sneakers scuffing against hot asphalt. She was so consumed by the ringing in her ears that she didn't notice the black Range Rover idling at the corner of the parking lot. She didn't see it pull out slowly and begin to follow her as she turned onto the deserted shortcut behind the stadium. The predator had driven the prey out of the sanctuary. Now the real hunt was about to begin. The black Range Rover came out of nowhere. It swerved around the corner, cutting off Maya's path, skidding to a halt in a cloud of dust just feet in front of her. Before she could turn and run, 2 more vehicles appeared behind her, blocking any escape. Maya stopped. Her heart hammered. But she forced herself to breathe. Situational awareness. Her father's voice. Assess the threat. 3 vehicles, multiple hostiles. No visible exit. Stand your ground. The doors opened. Bradley Crawford stepped out. He wasn't smiling anymore. The charming golden boy was gone. In his place stood something ugly, raw entitlement mixed with wounded pride. 2 massive football players flanked him. They didn't speak. They just stood there like attack dogs waiting for a command. "Going somewhere, thief!" Bradley's voice echoed off the stadium walls. Maya didn't back up. "I'm going home, Bradley. I'm suspended. You won. Isn't that enough?" Bradley laughed. Hollow, cold. "Won." He walked toward her slowly. "Getting you kicked out is just paperwork. That's not winning." He stopped 3 feet away. "Winning is when you learn your place." He pointed to the dirt at his feet. "Kneel." Maya stared at him. "Excuse me." "Kneel." His voice dropped low. Dangerous. "Apologize for talking back to me in the cafeteria. Apologize for lying about my watch. Apologize for existing in my school." He stepped closer. "And maybe I won't tell the boys to check your bag for more stolen items." The threat was clear. Maya looked at the football players, then at Bradley. And for the first time, she saw him clearly. Not the golden boy, not the senator's son, not the quarterback with his future gift wrapped in privilege. She saw a scared, empty little boy trying to prove he mattered by destroying someone who had nothing. "You're pathetic," Maya said. The words were soft, but they cut like a blade. Bradley blinked. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." Maya stepped toward him. "You have everything, Bradley. Money, cars, this whole school at your feet, teachers who worship you, students who fear you." Her voice rose. "And yet you're so empty that you have to corner a girl in an alley and threaten her just to feel big." She was shouting now. "You're not a leader. You're not a prince. You're a bully, and without your daddy's money to hide behind." She leaned in close. "You are nothing." Bradley's face contorted. The vein in his temple throbbed. He had expected begging, tears, submission. Not this. Not a mirror held up to his soul. "Shut up," he hissed. "Does it hurt?" Maya pressed on. "Does it hurt to know that no matter how many watches your daddy buys, you'll never have honor? You'll never be half the man my father?" Crack. Bradley put his whole body into the slap. The force knocked Maya off her feet. She crumpled onto the gravel, her hands scraping against sharp stones. The world spun. A high-pitched ringing filled her ears. She tasted copper blood from a split lip. "Don't you ever talk about me like that!" Bradley screamed. His voice cracked. He was breathing hard, fists clenched at his sides. "You dirty little liar!" Maya lay on the ground stunned, but slowly she pushed herself up. She touched her lip, pulled her fingers away, bright red blood. And she looked up at Bradley. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She looked at him with pity. That broke him completely. "Stop looking at me." He kicked her backpack. It flew through the air, zipper bursting open. Books, pencils, papers scattered across the ground. And sliding out from between the pages of a notebook, a photograph in a simple frame. Bradley picked it up. A man in full military dress blues. A beautiful woman in a yellow sundress. A young Maya between them grinning at the camera. The only photograph Maya had of her family together. Bradley stared at it. "Look at this," he sneered. "A fake soldier and a dead maid. Trash. Just like you." He dropped the photo. Then he raised his foot and stomped on it, grinding his heel into the glass, into the faces of Maya's parents. The frame shattered. Maya let out a choked sob. That hurt worse than the slap. That broke something inside her. She scrambled toward the ruined photo on her hands and knees, desperate to save any piece of her family. "Pathetic," Bradley spat. Maya looked up. Past Bradley. Past his goons. Her eyes landed on the second-floor window of the school building just visible above the stadium wall. Someone was standing there. A woman in a tweed suit, holding a coffee cup, looking down at everything. Mrs. Patricia Henderson. Maya's heart leaped. "Mrs. Henderson!" she screamed, waving her bloody hand. "Help, please! Help me!" Through the glass, Henderson's face was clearly visible. She looked at Bradley. Then she looked down at Maya, kneeling in the dirt, blood on her face-shattered photograph clutched to her chest. For 5 agonizing seconds their eyes met. Maya begged with everything she had. Her eyes, her soul. "Please, please be human. Just this once." Mrs. Henderson's expression didn't change. She reached for the cord of the window blinds. One sharp tug. The white slat snapped shut. The window went blank. Patricia Henderson had witnessed a felony assault on a 16-year-old girl, and she had chosen to close the blinds. She had chosen the senator's son. She had chosen to let Maya bleed. Bradley turned, saw the closed window, laughed. "See, nobody cares, Williams. Nobody's coming for you. You're alone." He signaled to his teammates. "Let's go. She's not worth the effort." They climbed into their vehicles. Engines roared. Bradley revved the Range Rover, once spraying dirt into Maya's face. "Stay down where you belong." Then they were gone. Maya crawled to the shattered photograph. With trembling fingers, she brushed dirt off her father's face, off her mother's smile. A crack ran through the middle of the image, right through her family. The first drops of rain began to fall, heavy, cold, mixing with the blood on her chin and the tears on her cheeks. Maya curled into a ball, clutching what was left of the photo to her chest. The sky went dark. She had nothing left. No school, no allies, no way to reach her father. She closed her eyes, ready to give up. But then, she felt it. The ground beneath her cheek began to vibrate. Low at first, barely perceptible, then growing. A rhythmic mechanical tremor that shook the pebbles around her. The sound of heavy diesel engines, massive ones. Many of them. Maya lifted her head. Through the gray curtain of rain, shapes emerged from the service road behind the school. Military transport trucks, armored vehicles, government SUVs with flashing lights, and then a convoy of Humvees in tactical formation. The cavalry wasn't coming. The cavalry was here. The rain fell harder now, mixing with the blood on Maya's face and the dirt on her clothes. She lay curled on the ground, clutching the shattered photograph of her family, ready to surrender to the darkness closing in around her. Then the vibration grew stronger. Maya lifted her head. Through the gray curtain of rain, she saw them. Military transport trucks, armored Humvees, black government SUVs with flashing blue strobes cutting through the storm. The convoy didn't slow down. It barreled toward the school like a mechanized army descending on enemy territory. Maya pushed herself up onto her knees. Her hands were bleeding. Her lip was swollen. But her eyes were fixed on the lead vehicle. This couldn't be real. The convoy screeched to a halt at the edge of the school property. Doors flew open in unison. 6 military police officers stepped out wearing berets and tactical vests, moving with terrifying precision as they formed a perimeter. And then the rear door of the lead SUV opened. A soldier in full dress uniform stepped out first, standing at rigid attention, holding the door. Maya stopped breathing. A man emerged from the vehicle. 6'4", shoulders like a mountain, chest covered in ribbons and medals that caught the light even through the rain, and on each shoulder gleaming like they were made of pure lightning, 4 silver stars. 4 stars. General Marcus Williams had come home. Maya's father walked through the rain like it didn't exist. His eyes swept the school grounds, taking in every detail with the precision of a man who had commanded armies, who had stared down enemies across 1,000 battlefields. Then his eyes found his daughter, kneeling in the mud, blood on her face, clothes soaked, holding the shattered remains of their family photograph. Something in his expression shattered. For one moment, just one, he wasn't a general. He was a father who had failed to protect his child. He crossed the distance between them in 5 long strides. He dropped to his knees in the mud, not caring about his pristine uniform, not caring about anything except the broken girl in front of him. "Maya." His voice cracked. "Baby, I'm here. I'm here now." Maya looked up at him. Tears and rain streamed down her face. "Daddy." He pulled her into his arms. He held her so tight she could barely breathe, and she didn't care. She buried her face in his chest and sobbed, really sobbed for the first time since this nightmare began. "I held the line," she whispered against his uniform. "I didn't break. I didn't let them break me." "I know, soldier." His voice was thick with emotion. "I know you didn't." He pulled back just enough to look at her face. His thumb brushed gently across the bruise forming on her cheek, across the split in her lip. His expression changed. The father stepped back. The general stepped forward. Who did this? The question was quiet, controlled, more terrifying than any scream. "Bradley Crawford," Maya said. "Senator Crawford's son. And Mrs. Henderson, she watched. She saw him hit me. She was at the window, and she closed the blinds." General Williams went very still. "She watched my daughter get beaten. And she closed the blinds." It wasn't a question. "Captain Reynolds." His voice carried across the rain like thunder. A soldier appeared instantly. "Sir?" "Lock down this school. No one enters. No one leaves. We are treating this as a crime scene until further notice." "Yes, sir." Williams helped Maya to her feet. He took off his uniform jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, the 4-star insignia gleaming against her blood-stained hoodie. "Can you walk, soldier?" Maya straightened her spine. "Yes, sir." "Then let's go introduce ourselves." Monday, 8:47 a.m. The entire student body of Jefferson Academy had gathered in the main courtyard for the weekly flag ceremony. Principal Morrison was at the microphone droning about school spirit. Bradley Crawford stood with his teammates in the front row, tossing a football between his hands, looking bored. Mrs. Henderson stood near the faculty entrance, sipping coffee, satisfied that order had been restored to her universe. None of them knew what was coming. The first rumble came from the main gate. Heads turned. The rumble became a roar. 3 armored Humvees smashed through the open gates, their engines screaming. They took up positions across the main driveway in perfect tactical formation. Flanking them were black government SUVs with strobes flashing. The vehicles screeched to a halt. Principal Morrison dropped his notes. The microphone squealed with feedback. Nobody moved. The doors of the Humvees opened in perfect unison. 6 military police officers emerged, giants in berets and tactical gear, moving with the precision of a special operations team. They formed a perimeter around the lead SUV. And then General Marcus Williams stepped out. The effect was instantaneous. 500 students and faculty stood frozen, staring at the mountain of a man in full army dress blues. His chest was a wall of medals. His posture radiated absolute authority. But it was the shoulders that made people gasp. 4 silver stars on each epaulette. Even students who knew nothing about military ranks understood what 4 stars meant. This man answered to the President of the United States. This man commanded armies. General Williams turned back to the SUV and extended his hand. A hand that had signed combat orders, now gentle as a whisper. Maya stepped out. She was still wearing his jacket over her blood-stained hoodie. The bruise on her cheek was vivid against her dark skin. The bandage on her split lip was stark white. She took her father's hand. The silence in the courtyard was absolute. Across the assembly, Bradley Crawford's face went gray. The football slipped from his fingers and bounced away unnoticed. Mrs. Henderson's coffee cup slipped from her hand. It shattered on the concrete steps. Hot liquid splashed across her shoes, but she didn't move. She was staring at the man she had called imaginary. The ghost was real, and he was wearing 4 stars. General Williams stood still for a long moment, letting the image sink into every witness. Then he touched Maya's bandaged cheek with his thumb. The tenderness of the gesture made several students look away. "I'm sorry I wasn't here, soldier," he said quietly. "You're here now," Maya replied. The general nodded once. Then the tenderness vanished. Cold fury descended over his features like a steel door slamming shut. He turned to face the crowd. When he spoke, his voice needed no microphone. It was a command voice trained to carry over the roar of helicopters and the thunder of artillery. "My name is General Marcus Williams." The words rolled across the courtyard like approaching thunder. "Commander of Joint Special Operations Command, and this..." He placed his hand on Maya's shoulder. "Is my daughter." He paused. "Yesterday, my daughter was called a liar in this school. She was humiliated. She was stripped of her dignity." His eyes swept across the crowd and locked onto the varsity section. "And then she was assaulted." The crowd parted without anyone making a conscious decision. Students shuffled backward away from Bradley Crawford, leaving him stranded on an island of asphalt. General Williams began to walk. His boots struck the ground with the rhythm of a death march. The MPs fell into formation behind him. Bradley tried to stand tall, but his knees buckled. He grabbed the shoulder of the linebacker next to him for support. The linebacker stepped away. Bradley stood alone. General Williams stopped 12 inches from Bradley's face. He towered over the boy, blocking out the sky. "You like hitting girls, son?" Bradley's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She fell." "She fell." Williams nodded slowly. "That's interesting. Because I have military medics documenting the injury pattern on her face right now. Contusions consistent with an open-handed strike. Split lip from a ring impact." He leaned closer. "You're wearing a ring, aren't you, Bradley?" Bradley's hand shot behind his back. "My father." Bradley's voice cracked. "My father is Senator Richard Crawford. He sits on the Armed Services Committee. He votes on your budget. You don't have any right to..." "I know exactly who your father is." Williams didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Tell the senator that the ghost has arrived. Tell him that his money ends where my jurisdiction begins." Bradley started hyperventilating. Tears welled up in his eyes. "You hurt my child." Williams' voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried farther than a shout. "You tried to break her spirit because you were too weak to handle her strength." He straightened up. "You're going to learn about consequences now. Real consequences. The kind your daddy's checkbook can't make disappear." Williams turned his back on Bradley, the ultimate dismissal, and walked toward the school entrance. "Captain." His voice was ice. "Secure this student pending investigation. Nobody speaks to him without counsel present." 2 MPs moved toward Bradley. The boy's legs gave out. He would have fallen if they hadn't caught him. Williams mounted the steps toward Principal Morrison, who looked like he was about to have a cardiac event. "Principal Morrison." Williams stopped in front of the trembling administrator. "We need to have a conversation about your security footage, specifically the footage that mysteriously became corrupted yesterday afternoon." Morrison's face turned the color of old cheese. That was a technical malfunction. The storm, the servers, the storm." Williams nodded. "That's convenient." almost as convenient as the timing. He turned to his tech officer. "Lieutenant, I want that server room secured. If anyone has touched those drives in the last 24 hours, I want to know about it." "Yes, sir." Williams turned back to Morrison, but his eyes traveled past the principal to the woman standing frozen on the steps behind him. Mrs. Patricia Henderson. Their eyes met. Henderson's coffee-stained shoes were rooted to the concrete. Her face was a mask of barely controlled terror. Williams walked toward her slowly. Each footstep sounded like a judge's gavel. "Mrs. Henderson." His voice was different now. Not the controlled command he had used with Bradley and Morrison. Something more personal, more dangerous. "You destroyed my daughter's essay yesterday. You called her a liar. You told her that girls like her don't have fathers like me." Henderson opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "And then, yesterday afternoon," Williams stopped directly in front of her. "You stood at your window. You watched a boy beat my daughter. You watched her fall. You watched her bleed." He leaned in close. "And you closed the blinds." Henderson found her voice. It came out as a croak. I didn't see anything. I don't know what she told you, but I was in my car. I had already left for the day. The girl is confused. Trauma affects memory. I would never—" "You would never," Williams cut her off. "You would never ignore a student in distress. Never." Henderson lifted her chin, finding a shred of defiance. "I am a teacher of 23 years, General. My reputation is spotless. It's her word against mine, and quite frankly, what Mrs. Henderson—" Henderson hesitated, but arrogance won over caution. "Quite frankly, who is going to believe her, a scholarship student with a history of fabrication, over a veteran educator with 2 decades of service in a court of law? General reputation matters." Williams stared at her, and then for the first time he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "You seem very confident, Mrs. Henderson." "I am certain of my position." Williams nodded slowly. He reached into his uniform jacket and pulled out a large manila envelope. "You know, Mrs. Henderson, one of the benefits of my command is access to certain resources. When my daughter's phone went offline yesterday when you suspended her, my security team initiated a protection protocol." Henderson's confidence flickered. "We couldn't reach Maya, so we pulled surveillance assets to locate her." Williams opened the envelope and extracted a large, glossy photograph. "Specifically, we accessed the feed from a geosynchronous satellite that monitors this sector for diplomatic security purposes." He held up the photograph. It showed the school from a high angle. The resolution was impossibly clear. The timestamp read 3:42 p.m. Henderson stared at the image. Her face drained of color. The photo clearly showed Maya on the ground behind the bleachers, Bradley standing over her, and in the second-floor window, perfectly visible from the satellite angle, a woman in a tweed suit holding a coffee cup looking down at the scene. "That is a distinctive brooch you're wearing in this photo, Mrs. Henderson." Williams pointed to the tiny but unmistakable shape on the figure's lapel. "The same one you're wearing right now." Henderson's hand flew to her chest. "Satellite imagery doesn't lie, Mrs. Henderson." Williams stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "You watched a boy beat my daughter. You watched her scream for help. And you smiled." Henderson swayed on her feet. The photo is you can't prove. I don't need to prove anything to you." Williams tucked the photo back into the envelope. "I just need to show this to the FBI agents who are currently en route to this location." He turned to the MPs. "Officers, read Mrs. Henderson her rights. Then remove her from my sight before I forget that I am an officer of the United States Army and not an executioner." "No." "Wait." 2 MPs stepped forward. One of them produced handcuffs. "Patricia Henderson, you have the right to remain silent." "You can't do this!" Henderson screamed, all pretense of dignity shattered. "I am a teacher. I have tenure. Senator Crawford will. Senator Crawford can't help you. Williams didn't turn around. Senator Crawford can't even help himself. The MPs led Henderson away, her screams echoing across the silent courtyard. Every student, every teacher, every administrator watched in stunned disbelief as the woman who had ruled Jefferson Academy's English department for 2 decades was marched toward a waiting vehicle in handcuffs. Williams turned to face the crowd one final time. This school has failed my daughter. It has failed every student who has been bullied, discriminated against, or silenced because they didn't fit someone's idea of who belongs here. His voice carried across the courtyard. That ends today. Every computer, every file, every piece of evidence in this building is now part of a federal investigation. And everyone who participated in the systematic targeting of vulnerable students will answer for their actions. He looked at Maya. Let's go, soldier. We have work to do. Maya walked beside her father, past the gaping students, past the trembling faculty, past the broken remains of Bradley Crawford, being escorted to a waiting vehicle. She didn't look back. Monday, 11:23 a.m. The presidential suite of the local Marriott had transformed into a tactical command center. Blackout curtains blocked every window. Military laptops covered the dining table. Servers hummed in the corner. General Williams stood over a conference table covered with documents, photographs, and evidence bags. "Sir, we have a problem." Captain Reynolds looked up from his laptop. "The assault footage. Principal Morrison claims the security server crashed during yesterday's storm. The files are corrupted beyond recovery." Maya sat in the corner wrapped in a blanket, a cup of hot chocolate growing cold in her hands. She watched her father's face. "Morrison is lying," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "There is footage. I know there is. The cameras behind the bleachers were working. I saw the red light." Williams nodded slowly. "Morrison is covering his tracks. He knows that footage proves the assault." He turned to Reynolds. "Who else would have access to those servers? IT department, administration, maintenance staff." Williams went still. "Maintenance." "There's a janitor," Maya said, sitting up straighter. "Mr. Thompson. He's a veteran. Vietnam. He's the only person in that whole school who was ever nice to me. He always saved me the best apple at lunch." Williams looked at his daughter. "Earl Thompson." Maya nodded. Something shifted in Williams' expression. "Captain, find Earl Thompson. Bring him here. Quietly." 2 hours later, Earl Thompson sat in the hotel suite, still wearing his gray maintenance uniform. His hands, calloused from decades of work, rested on his knees. "Haven't seen 4 stars down in my hole before," Earl said, his gravelly voice carrying the weight of old wars. "Last time I saw that much brass, I was on a stretcher in Da Nang, looking up at the night sky." Williams sat across from him. "Marine Corps Reconnaissance 1968. I read your file, Earl. You were a hero." Earl shrugged. "I was a survivor. There's a difference. You've been working at Jefferson Academy for 15 years. You see things, you hear things." Earl's eyes sharpened. "I know why you're here, General. You want to know if I have what you need." "Do you—" Earl was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into the breast pocket of his jumpsuit. He pulled out a battered digital voice recorder. Old model. The kind used for dictation in the 90s. "The teacher's lounge has an air vent right above the coffee station," Earl said, "where Mrs. Henderson and her little circle hold court during lunch. They think the walls don't have ears." He placed the recorder on the table. "I was Recon General. Old habits die hard." Williams picked up the recorder. "What's on this?" "Hit play. You'll see." Williams pressed the button. Static, then voices. Henderson's voice came through, thin but unmistakable. "I don't care how well she writes, Thomas. The girl is a problem. If her GPA passes Bradley's, the senator will pull funding for the new library wing. We cannot have a scholarship student as valedictorian. It looks messy." Morrison's voice responded. "So what do you suggest?" The same thing we've always done. Subjective grading on essays, participation deductions, attendance technicalities, death by 1,000 cuts. A third voice, deeper, authoritative. Williams recognized it immediately. Senator Richard Crawford. You know the deal, Patricia. I don't pay you to grade papers. I pay you to curate the future. Break the girl's spirit. Make her believe she's stupid. Make her believe she doesn't belong here. Henderson's voice purred with satisfaction. And if she persists, then we remove her, plant something, create a scandal, whatever it takes. I pay you to teach Patricia, but I bonus you to remove obstacles. The recording ended. The silence in the room was absolute. Williams stared at the recorder. They planned this. The watch. The suspension. They've been targeting her from the beginning. Earl nodded slowly. It's not just your daughter, General. I've been fishing papers out of Henderson's trash for 2 years. Essays, tests, homework. Every scholarship kid, every minority student who starts climbing too high. Their work goes in the garbage. Their grades go down. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a thick manila folder. I saved everything. Williams opened the folder. Inside were dozens of graded assignments. Maya's name appeared on several brilliant work marked with failing grades, scathing comments in red ink. Lacks critical thinking. Inappropriate content. Rewrite required. Next to Maya's papers were assignments from other students. Bradley Crawford's name on several. Mediocre work. Barely legible handwriting. Perfect scores. It's systematic, Reynolds said, looking over Williams' shoulder. They're not just discriminating. They're manufacturing futures, keeping certain kids down so certain other kids rise. Williams looked at Earl. The security footage. Morrison said it was corrupted. Do you know anything about that? Earl smiled. It was a wolf's smile. Morrison isn't a tech genius, General, but he is a coward, and cowards always keep insurance. He reached into his jumpsuit one more time. This time, he pulled out a small silver hard drive. 5 minutes before Morrison wiped those servers, he copied everything to this. I watched him do it on the security monitor in my supply closet. He didn't know anybody was watching. Earl placed the drive on the table next to the voice recorder. He was planning to use it as leverage if the senator ever turned on him. Blackmail material. But I lifted it from his safe this morning. Williams stared at the hard drive. This contains the footage of my daughter being assaulted. Everything. Full video, audio, timestamps. Every second of what happened behind those bleachers. Williams looked at Earl Thompson, the janitor that everyone ignored, the invisible man who saw everything. Why did you save all this, Earl? Why take the risk? Earl's weathered face softened as he looked at Maya, still wrapped in her blanket, across the room. That girl is the only person in that school who ever looked at me like I was a human being. Every morning. Good morning, Mr. Thompson. Every single day. Nobody else sees me. She did. He looked back at Williams. So I made sure I saw her. Williams stood up. Captain Reynolds, get our cyber team on this drive immediately. I want that footage authenticated and ready for the FBI within the hour. Yes, sir. Williams walked over to Earl and extended his hand. You're a good man, Earl Thompson, and a hell of a Marine. Earl shook his hand firmly. Semper Fi, General. Williams turned to his daughter. Maya, I need you to be strong for a little while longer. What we found today, it's going to blow this whole thing wide open. But Senator Crawford isn't going to go down without a fight. Maya lowered her blanket and stood up. I've been fighting alone for 3 weeks, Dad. I can fight a little longer. Williams looked at his daughter, really looked at her. She wasn't the little girl he had left behind. She had been forged in fire while he was away. She had faced monsters and held her ground. She had become a soldier. I'm proud of you, he said quietly. Your mother would be proud of you. Maya's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. Let's finish this. Monday, 4:15 p.m. Senator Richard Crawford's limousine screeched to a halt outside Jefferson Academy. He had been in a committee meeting when his phone exploded with messages. By the time his driver fought through traffic to the school, the situation had escalated beyond anything he had anticipated. His son was in military custody. His paid accomplice was in FBI custody. And a 4-star general was treating his campaign donor's private school like occupied territory. Crawford stormed through the main entrance flanked by 3 attorneys in expensive suits. He found General Williams in the principal's office calmly reviewing documents at Morrison's desk. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Crawford's voice echoed through the administration building. Williams didn't look up. "Senator, I was wondering when you'd arrive." "This is a civilian institution." Crawford slammed his hands on the desk. "You have no jurisdiction here. You cannot march military police into an American high school and arrest American citizens." Williams finally looked up. "I haven't arrested anyone, Senator. The FBI arrested your accomplices. I'm simply here to ensure my daughter's safety and to cooperate with the federal investigation." Federal investigation. Crawford's face turned purple. "On whose authority?" "On the authority of the evidence." Williams stood up slowly. He was taller than Crawford, broader, more dangerous in every way. "Would you like to know what we found, Senator?" Crawford's attorneys shifted nervously. "We found financial records, monthly payments from your super PAC to Mrs. Henderson, going back 15 years. Crawford's eye twitched. "We found witness testimony, staff members who were instructed to manipulate grades, to target specific students, to, how did you phrase it on the recording, remove obstacles." Crawford went very still. "Recording." Williams picked up his phone and pressed play. Crawford's own voice filled the room. "I don't pay you to grade papers. I pay you to curate the future." Williams stopped the recording. The color drained from Crawford's face. "You're finished, Senator. Racketeering, conspiracy, civil rights violations, evidence tampering. And that's before we add accessory charges for what your son did to my daughter." "My son is a child. He's 17. He's old enough to face assault charges in Virginia, and he's certainly old enough to testify about what Daddy told him to do." Crawford's attorneys were already backing toward the door. "You think you can destroy me?" Crawford's voice dropped to a hiss. "I have connections you can't imagine. I sit on the committee that controls your budget. I can end your career with one phone call." Williams stepped around the desk. He walked toward Crawford until they were face to face. "Senator, I have commanded troops in 7 combat zones. I have faced enemies who would eat you for breakfast. You think I'm afraid of a phone call?" He leaned in close. "You hurt my daughter. You targeted her because of the color of her skin and the size of her bank account. You tried to destroy her future to protect your mediocre son's unearned privilege." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "There is no phone call that will save you from me. There is no connection that will protect you. You are going to lose everything: your seat, your freedom, your legacy. And when you're sitting in a federal prison cell, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember the day you learned that Marcus Williams protects his family." Crawford's attorneys grabbed his arms. "Senator, we need to leave, now." Crawford shook them off. His face twisted with impotent rage. "This isn't over, General." Williams stepped back. "No, Senator, it's not. It's just beginning." Crawford stormed out. Williams watched him go, then turned to look out the window at the courtyard below. Maya stood there surrounded by MPs, talking to an FBI agent. She was pointing toward the bleachers, walking the agent through what had happened. She looked small from up here, but she didn't look broken. Williams pulled out his phone and dialed. "Lieutenant Chang, what's the status on that hard drive?" "Fully decrypted, sir. We have everything. The assault footage is crystal clear. Audio is pristine. We can see the whole thing." Williams closed his eyes. "And the window? Can we see Mrs. Henderson at the window?" "Yes, sir. Clear as day. And General, what is it?" "She's smiling, sir. In the footage. When your daughter is on the ground bleeding, Henderson is standing at the window and she's smiling. Williams was silent for a long moment. Get that footage to the FBI. Priority 1. Already done, sir. Williams hung up. He looked at the American flag hanging on Morrison's wall. The words, "With liberty and justice for all," echoed in his mind. Justice was coming, and it would be devastating. Senator Richard Crawford sat alone in his study, a glass of whiskey trembling in his hand. The television mounted on the wall showed his face on every channel. Breaking news banners screamed accusations he had spent 20 years burying. His phone had not stopped ringing for hours. He had stopped answering after the third call from party leadership demanding his resignation. The door opened behind him. Bradley stood in the doorway, still wearing the clothes from that morning. His face was pale. His eyes were red. "Dad?" Crawford didn't turn around. "They let you go. Released to your custody. Pending arraignment." Bradley's voice cracked. "Dad, what's happening?" "There are news vans outside. Mom is crying. The lawyers won't stop talking about prison." Crawford drained his whiskey in one swallow. "It's that girl. That lying little—" "She wasn't lying." Crawford spun around. Bradley stood there shaking, but his eyes held something new. Something that looked almost like clarity. "What did you just say?" "She wasn't lying. Dad, her father is a general. You saw him, 4 stars. And everything she said in that essay about honor, about sacrifice, it was true. All of it." Crawford's face contorted with rage. "Don't you dare defend her. After everything I've done for you. After everything I've sacrificed." "What have you sacrificed?" Bradley's voice rose. "What you paid Mrs. Henderson to fail kids who were smarter than me. You rigged my grades. You bought my spot on the team. You—" Crawford crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed Bradley by the collar of his shirt. "I made you. Everything you have, everything you are exists because of me. Without my money, without my connections, you are nothing." Bradley didn't flinch. "Then I'm nothing, Dad, because I'm done." Crawford shoved him backward. Bradley stumbled, but didn't fall. "You're done. You think you have a choice. We are in this together, Bradley. If I go down, you go down. Assault charges, conspiracy. You'll be tried as an adult. I'll make sure of it." Bradley stared at his father. For 17 years he had feared this man, worshipped him, tried desperately to earn his approval. And in this moment, standing in the study surrounded by the wreckage of their lies, Bradley finally saw the truth. His father didn't love him. His father had never loved him. He was just another asset, another tool to be used and discarded. "I'm going to tell the truth," Bradley said quietly. "I'm going to tell them everything." Crawford laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Tell them what? That Daddy made you do it, that poor little Bradley was just following orders." He shook his head. "No one will believe you, and even if they did, I'll bury you before I let you bury me." "You already buried me, Dad." Bradley turned and walked toward the door. Bradley, if you walk out that door—" Bradley stopped. His hand rested on the doorknob. "You hit me last night," he said without turning around. "When I got home from the school. You hit me because I got caught. Not because I hurt a girl. Not because I did something wrong. Because I got caught." He opened the door. "I'm done being your weapon, Dad. I'm done." Bradley walked out. Crawford hurled his whiskey glass at the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. Tuesday, 6:15 a.m. General Williams received the call before dawn. "Sir, we have a situation." Captain Reynolds' voice was tense. "What kind of situation?" "Channel 5 just aired a breaking news segment. Senator Crawford released security footage to the media." Williams sat up in bed. Maya was asleep in the adjoining room of the hotel suite, exhausted from the endless interrogations and interviews. "What footage?" "Edited footage, sir. They took the video from the bleachers and cut it." Removed everything before Maya pushed Bradley. The version they're airing shows her shoving him first, makes her look like the aggressor. Williams was on his feet now, already reaching for his uniform. They cut the slap. They cut everything. Yes, sir. The narrative they're pushing is that you're an overprotective father using military resources to persecute a teenage boy. They're calling it the abuse of power, a military coup against a civilian school. Williams' jaw tightened. Crawford is trying to win the court of public opinion because he knows he's losing the legal battle. It's working, sir. Social media is exploding. Half the country thinks Maya is the villain now. Williams walked to the window and looked out at the city. Get Lieutenant Chang. Tell him I need the original footage authenticated and ready for broadcast within 3 hours. If Crawford wants a media war, we'll give him one. Yes, sir. And sir, there's something else. What? Bradley Crawford is downstairs in the lobby. He came alone. He says he wants to talk to you. Williams went very still. Bradley Crawford wants to talk to me. Yes, sir. He's been waiting since 4 a.m. He says he has information. He says he wants to help. Williams looked toward the door of Maya's room. Search him. Make sure he's not wired. Then bring him up. Tuesday, 6:52 a.m. Bradley Crawford looked like he hadn't slept in days. His designer clothes were wrinkled. His eyes were hollow. A fresh bruise marked his jawline, the same shade as the one on Maya's cheek. He sat across from General Williams, his hands clasped between his knees. Why are you here, Bradley? Bradley looked up. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Because I'm tired, he finally said. I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of being him. Him. My father. Bradley's voice was barely above a whisper. I've spent my whole life trying to make him proud, trying to be good enough. But nothing was ever enough. Nothing I did ever mattered unless it made him look good. William studied the boy's face. What happened to your jaw? Bradley touched the bruise reflexively. He hit me, last night. When I got home from the school, he hit me because I got caught. Not because you hit Maya. No. Bradley shook his head. He didn't care about that. He only cared that it might make him look bad. Williams leaned forward. Why should I believe anything you say? You planted evidence. You assaulted my daughter. You've been part of a conspiracy to destroy her for weeks. I know. Tears welled up in Bradley's eyes. I know what I did. And I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything for myself. He reached into his jacket pocket. The MP's tensed hands moving toward their sidearms. Bradley slowly pulled out a flash drive. I'm asking you to let me make it right. He placed the drive on the table between them. My father has a private server in our house. He thinks it's secure, but I've known the password since I was 14. I copied everything last night. Emails, financial records, recorded phone calls. Williams looked at the drive. What's on there? Everything. 20 years of everything. Not just what he did to Maya. Other kids too. Other families. Other lives he destroyed because they got in his way. Bradley's voice broke. He's been doing this my whole life. And I helped him. I didn't know. I knew. But I didn't want to see it. He looked up at Williams with red-rimmed eyes. Maya's essay. About her father. About honor being what you do when no one's watching. He swallowed hard. I've never had that. I've never known what that felt like. My father taught me that winning is the only thing that matters, that people are either useful or worthless. Bradley wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. But when I hit Maya, when she looked up at me with pity instead of fear, something broke inside me. She should have hated me. She should have wanted me destroyed. But she looked at me like I was the one who needed saving. Williams was silent for a long moment. Why didn't you come forward before now? Because I was scared. Because I'm weak. Because I've never done anything brave in my entire life. Bradley stood up. But I'm doing it now. I'm testifying against my father. I'm telling the truth about everything. And if I go to prison for what I did, then I go to prison. At least I'll finally know what it feels like to do the right thing. The door to the adjoining room opened. Maya stood there wrapped in a blanket, her eyes wide. She had heard everything. Bradley turned to face her. His hands trembled at his sides. Maya, I heard. Her voice was quiet, unreadable. Bradley took a step toward her, then stopped. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know I can't take back what I did. But I need you to know, I'm not going to let him win. I'm going to tell the truth. All of it. Maya studied his face. The boy who had poured milk on her head, who had stolen her dignity in front of the whole school, who had hit her so hard she saw stars. The boy who was now standing before her with tears streaming down his face, offering to destroy his own father to make things right. You wrote to me, Maya said softly. After the hearing, you forwarded the legal document with a note. Bradley nodded. I told you the truth was the only thing he couldn't buy. You said I should expose him because it would save me. Maya took a step closer. But you also said it would save you. I didn't think I deserved to be saved. Maybe you don't. Maya's voice was calm. Maybe you deserve to suffer for what you did. Maybe you deserve to lose everything. Bradley closed his eyes. I know. But that's not my decision to make. She walked past him and picked up the flash drive from the table. If this is real, if you're really willing to testify against your own father, then you're not the same person who hit me behind those bleachers. She looked at her own father. Dad, I think we should hear what he has to say. General Williams looked at his daughter. Then at Bradley. Captain Reynolds, get our tech team on that drive. I want everything verified within 2 hours. Yes, sir. Williams stood up and walked toward Bradley. The boy flinched, expecting a blow. Instead, Williams put a hand on his shoulder. Turning on your father is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. Are you sure you're ready for that? Bradley met his eyes. No, sir. I'm not ready, but I'm going to do it anyway. Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. The City Hall auditorium was a powder keg. 500 people packed the public hearing. On one side sat the old guard wealthy parents, political allies, members of Crawford's donor network. On the other side sat veterans, minority families, scholarship students, and everyone who had ever been silenced by the powerful. Camera crews from every major network lined the walls. Senator Crawford sat at the defendant's table, flanked by his team of expensive lawyers. He wore his best suit, his American flag pin perfectly positioned on his lapel. He still believed he could win this. General Williams sat in the front row with Maya beside him. She wore a simple blue dress. The bruise on her cheek had faded to a sickly yellow. The hearing moderator called for order. Senator Crawford rose to speak first. His voice boomed with righteous indignation. This is a travesty of justice. A military general has marched tanks into our schools. He has arrested American citizens without due process. He has used classified satellite technology to spy on our children. He pointed at Williams. This man is a tyrant. He has weaponized his rank to persecute my son, a child, all because of a schoolyard disagreement. Murmurs of agreement from his side of the room. Crawford's lawyers introduced the edited footage. On the screen, Maya appeared to shove Bradley first. As you can clearly see, the general's daughter was the aggressor. My son was merely defending himself. This entire investigation is a witch hunt orchestrated by a grieving father who can't accept that his daughter is not the angel he believes her to be. Crawford sat down, looking satisfied. The moderator turned to General Williams. General, your response. Williams stood slowly. The senator has accused me of many things: overreach, tyranny, abuse of power. He walked toward the projector controls. But the senator has also taught me something valuable today. He's taught me that in his world, the truth can be edited. Reality can be cut and shaped to serve his purposes. Williams looked at the technical officer. Lieutenant, please play the complete footage. The screen flickered. The image changed. This was not the edited clip that had aired on the news. This was the full uncut video from Principal Morrison's hidden drive. The audience watched in silence as Bradley approached Maya. They heard his threats. They saw him demand that she kneel. They watched Maya stand her ground. They heard her call him pathetic. And then they saw the slap. The sound of Bradley's hand connecting with Maya's face echoed through the silent auditorium. Gasps rippled through the crowd as Maya crumpled to the ground. But the footage didn't stop there. It showed Bradley stomping on the photograph. It showed Maya screaming for help. And then the camera angle shifted to show the school building. The second-floor window came into focus. Mrs. Patricia Henderson stood there perfectly visible holding her coffee cup, watching the assault unfold below her. And as Bradley's foot ground Maya's family photo into the dirt, Henderson's lips curled upward. She was smiling. The auditorium erupted. "Order!" The moderator slammed his gavel. "Order!" But there was no order. Parents were on their feet. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Crawford's face had gone gray. His lawyers were already packing their briefcases. Williams spoke over the chaos. "That was not a schoolyard disagreement, Senator. That was a hate crime, and your paid accomplice watched it happen and smiled." He pulled out a document. Financial records showing monthly payments from your super PAC to Mrs. Henderson, going back 15 years. He pulled out another document. Recorded conversations in which you explicitly instruct Henderson to, and I quote, "break the girl's spirit and remove obstacles from your son's path." He looked directly at Crawford. "You didn't just enable my daughter's assault, Senator. You ordered it." Crawford shot to his feet. "This is fabricated. This is Senator Crawford." A new voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned. Bradley Crawford stood in the center aisle flanked by 2 FBI agents. His father froze. "Bradley, what are you, Bradley? Get back to your seat. We'll discuss this." "No, Dad." Bradley's voice was steady, stronger than anyone had ever heard it. "We won't discuss anything. I'm here to testify." Crawford's face contorted with rage. "You will not." "I will." Bradley walked toward the witness stand. "I'm going to tell them everything. About the watch you told me to plant. About the grades you paid Mrs. Henderson to fix. About the other families you destroyed over the years." He stopped and turned to face his father. "I'm going to tell them about the night you hit me because I got caught. And I'm going to tell them about every single lie you ever made me tell." Crawford lunged forward, but his lawyers grabbed him. "You ungrateful! I gave you everything I made you." Bradley didn't flinch. "No, Dad. You broke me. You broke me so many times I forgot what whole felt like." He looked at Maya. "Someone had to show me." He took the witness stand. The moderator called for order. Slowly, the room quieted. "State your name for the record." "Bradley Richard Crawford." "And you are here voluntarily?" "Yes." "You understand you may incriminate yourself in criminal activities?" Bradley nodded. "I understand. I'm ready." For the next 45 minutes, Bradley dismantled his father's empire word by word. He testified about the grade-fixing scheme that went back decades. He named names, other teachers, other administrators, other wealthy families who had participated in the conspiracy. He testified about the watch, about Henderson opening Maya's locker, about the coordinated plan to destroy her. He testified about his father's temper, about the bruises he had hidden for years, about the psychological abuse that had shaped him into a weapon against innocent people. And finally, he testified about the moment everything changed. "When I hit Maya," Bradley said, his voice breaking, "she fell to the ground. She was bleeding. And I stood there waiting for her to cry. I needed her to cry. I needed to see her break so I could feel like I wasn't worthless." He wiped his eyes. But she didn't break. She stood up. She wiped her face. And she looked at me with pity. Not hatred. Not fear. pity. Bradley looked at his father. She had nothing and she felt sorry for me, because she understood that I was the one who was empty. I was the one who was broken. And for the first time in my life, I saw myself through someone else's eyes. He turned back to the moderator. I'm guilty. I assaulted Maya Williams. I participated in a conspiracy to frame her for theft. I've been a coward and a bully my entire life, and I'm prepared to accept whatever punishment the court decides. He straightened his shoulders. But I'm also prepared to do something I've never done before. I'm prepared to tell the truth, all of it, no matter what it costs me. The auditorium was silent. Crawford sat frozen at the defendant's table. His lawyers had stopped even pretending to take notes. The political allies who had stood by him for decades were already edging toward the exits. The moderator cleared his throat. Given the testimony presented today, this hearing will recess for deliberation. Senator Crawford, you are hereby remanded to federal custody pending a full investigation. Two federal marshals approached Crawford's table. Richard Crawford, you are under arrest for federal racketeering, bribery, conspiracy to commit assault and civil rights violations. You have the right to remain silent. Crawford didn't struggle as they cuffed him. He didn't shout or threaten or bargain. He just stared at his son with an expression of pure, bottomless hatred. Bradley didn't look away. As the marshals led Crawford toward the exit, he passed directly by Maya's seat. He stopped. The marshals tensed hands on their weapons. Crawford looked down at the 16-year-old girl who had brought his empire crashing down. You think you've won. His voice was a poisonous whisper. You're nothing. A poor black girl from the wrong side of town. In 6 months, no one will remember your name. But the Crawford name will live. My son will. Your son just buried you, Maya said calmly. And my name is Maya Williams, daughter of General Marcus Williams, daughter of Elizabeth Williams, who died of cancer 6 years ago, fighting to raise me right. She stood up. You tried to erase me. You tried to make me believe I was worthless. But I'm still standing, and you're going to prison. Crawford's face twisted. Get him out of here, Williams said quietly. The marshals pulled Crawford away. As the doors closed behind him, Maya felt her father's hand on her shoulder. You okay, soldier? Maya watched the doors for a long moment. Yeah, she said finally. I think I am. Tuesday, 7:45 p.m. The hotel suite was quiet for the first time in days. Maya sat by the window looking out at the city lights. The flash drive Bradley had given them sat on the table beside her. Her father entered the room carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate. Thought you could use this. Maya took the cup. Thanks, Dad. William sat down across from her. Hell of a day. Hell of a week. They sat in silence for a moment. What happens now? Maya asked. Crawford faces federal charges. Henderson is already cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. The school board is being completely restructured. And Bradley? William sighed. That's complicated. He committed crimes. He'll face consequences. But his testimony was crucial. The prosecutors are recommending a plea deal, probation, community service, mandatory counseling. No prison time. Maya nodded slowly. Do you think he deserves that? I think that's not for me to decide. Williams looked at his daughter. What do you think? Maya stared into her hot chocolate. When he hit me, I hated him. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him destroyed. She looked up. But when he stood up in that courtroom and told the truth about his father, when he chose to do the right thing, even though it cost him everything, I saw something different. What did you see? Someone who was finally free. Maya set down her cup. His whole life he was a prisoner. His father controlled everything, his grades, his future, his identity. He didn't know how to be anything except what his father made him. She looked at the flash drive. But today he chose. For maybe the first time in his life, he made his own choice. He chose truth over loyalty. He chose right over safe. William studied his daughter's face. "You're not angry at him. I'm angry at what he did. I'll probably always be angry about that." Maya met her father's eyes. "But I'm not going to let that anger turn me into something ugly. Mom wouldn't have wanted that." Williams reached out and took her hand. "Your mother would be so proud of you right now." Maya's eyes glistened. "I miss her, Dad. Every day I miss her." "I know, baby. I miss her too." They sat together in the quiet father and daughter as the city lights twinkled below them. Tomorrow would bring more battles, more testimony, more cameras and questions and decisions. But for now, they had this moment. And for the first time in weeks, Maya felt something she had almost forgotten. Peace. Maya woke to the sound of her father's voice in the next room. He was on the phone speaking in the clipped, urgent tones she had learned to recognize as his command voice. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and walked to the doorway. When? Her father was pacing. "How did they get the footage?" Pause. "Understood. I'm on my way." He hung up and turned. His face was drawn. "Dad, what happened?" "Get dressed. We need to move." "What's going on?" Williams walked toward her and put both hands on her shoulders. Someone leaked the full courtroom footage to every major network, including Bradley's testimony, including everything he said about his father. Maya's stomach dropped. "That's good, right? People need to see the truth." "It's complicated." Williams grabbed his uniform jacket. "Bradley is 17. He's a minor. His testimony was supposed to be sealed until sentencing. Someone violated a federal court order to release it." "Who would do that?" Williams' jaw tightened. "Someone who wants Bradley destroyed. Someone who wants revenge." Maya understood immediately. "Crawford, from prison. He still has allies, still has money, still has people willing to do his dirty work." Williams pulled on his jacket. "Bradley is getting death threats, hundreds of them. His mother's house was vandalized last night. Someone spray-painted the word traitor across the garage." Maya felt sick. "Where is he now?" "FBI safe house. But he's scared, Maya. He's asking for you." "For me?" "You're the only person who saw him change. The only person who believed he could be different." Williams looked at his daughter. "You don't have to go. After what he did to you, no one would blame you for walking away." Maya was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the boy who had poured milk on her head, who had planted evidence in her bag, who had hit her so hard she saw stars. She thought about the boy who had stood up in a courtroom and destroyed his own father to save her. "I'll go," she said. Wednesday, 7:15 a.m. The FBI safe house was a nondescript building in a quiet suburban neighborhood. 2 agents stood guard at the door. 3 more patrolled the perimeter. Maya walked in alone. Bradley sat on a worn couch in the living room. He looked like he hadn't slept. His phone lay on the coffee table screen, cracked notifications still flooding in. He looked up when she entered. "You came. You asked for me." Maya sat down in the chair across from him. They stared at each other for a long moment. "I've gotten 847 death threats since yesterday," Bradley said. His voice was hollow. "People want me dead. People who don't even know me want me dead because I told the truth about my father." "Do you regret it?" Bradley considered the question. "No. I regret what I did to you. I regret who I was. But I don't regret what I said in that courtroom." He looked down at his hands. "For the first time in my life, I actually feel like myself, whoever that is." Maya leaned forward. "Why did you ask for me?" Bradley was quiet for a long moment. "Because you're the only person who's ever looked at me and seen something worth saving." His voice cracked. "My mother thinks I'm a monster. My friends won't answer my calls. The whole world thinks I'm either a villain or a snitch. But you—" He looked up at her. "You looked at me with pity, not hatred. Pity. Like you understood that I was the one who was really broken." Maya didn't respond. "I need to know," Bradley continued. "Was I right? Is there something in me worth saving? Or am I just my father's son?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya thought about her own father, about the lessons he had taught her, about what it meant to be strong. "My mom used to say that we all have two wolves inside us," Maya said finally. "One is darkness, fear, anger, hatred. The other is light, love, courage, hope. The one that wins is the one you feed." She looked at Bradley. "For 17 years you fed the wrong wolf. You let your father's darkness become your own. You hurt people because you were hurting. You destroyed because you felt destroyed." Bradley flinched. "But yesterday you made a different choice. You stopped feeding the darkness. You chose light, even though it cost you everything." Maya stood up. "That doesn't erase what you did. That doesn't make it okay. But it means you're not your father's son anymore. You're your own person, and the person you become from this moment forward is up to you." Bradley stared at her. Tears streamed down his face. "How do you do it?" he whispered. "How do you stay so strong? After everything they did to you, after everything I did to you, how are you not consumed by hate?" Maya walked to the window. "When my mother was dying," she said quietly, "she made me promise her something. She said hatred was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She said if I let hatred take root in my heart, it would destroy me from the inside out." She turned back to face him. "I wanted to hate you. I wanted to hate Mrs. Henderson and Principal Morrison and your father. I wanted to let it burn through me until there was nothing left but rage." Maya's voice hardened. "But that would have meant they won. They would have taken my joy, my peace, my future. They would have turned me into someone my mother wouldn't recognize." She walked back to Bradley and stood over him. "So, I made a choice. The same choice you made yesterday. I chose to be defined by what I overcome, not by what happens to me." Bradley looked up at her with something like wonder. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "I'm not strong," Maya said simply. "I'm just too stubborn to let them win." Wednesday, 10:45 a.m. General Williams called Maya with news. "We have a problem." Maya stepped away from Bradley, who had finally fallen asleep on the couch. "What kind of problem?" "Mrs. Henderson is trying to cut a deal. She's claiming diminished capacity. Says Crawford manipulated her. Says she was a victim too." Maya's blood went cold. "A victim. She smiled while I was being beaten. She spent years destroying students' lives. She's not a victim. She's a predator." "I know, but her lawyers are good. They're spinning a narrative: older woman, abusive relationship, financial dependence. They're trying to paint Crawford as the mastermind and Henderson as just a pawn. That's insane." "It's not insane. It's strategy. If she gets a reduced sentence, she could be out in 2 years instead of 10. Maya felt the anger rising in her chest. "What can we do?" "The prosecution needs more evidence of Henderson's independent actions. Things she did on her own without Crawford's direction. Things that prove she was an active participant, not just a follower." Maya's mind raced. Earl Thompson, the janitor. He saved all those papers, the grade-fixed assignments, the destroyed essays. Those prove she was doing this for years, long before Crawford got involved. "We need more than papers. We need witnesses, other students she targeted." Maya went quiet. She thought about the lonely tables in the cafeteria, the scholarship kids who kept their heads down, the minorities who seemed to shrink smaller every year. "I know where to find them," Maya said. Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. Maya stood in front of Jefferson Academy for the first time since her suspension. The school was closed, crime scene tape still crisscrossed the entrance, but Maya wasn't here for the building. She was here for the people. Word had spread through the student network. Maya Williams was gathering witnesses. Anyone who had been targeted by Henderson. Anyone who had stories to tell. They came in ones and twos at first, then in groups. Marcus Chen, whose perfect chemistry grades mysteriously dropped to C's after he started tutoring wealthy students. Destiny Jackson, whose college recommendation letter was accidentally never sent. Miguel Rodriguez, who was told his essay about immigration was too political and given a failing grade. Sarah Okonkwo, who was called a liar when she reported harassment by a wealthy student. One by one they came forward. One by one they told their stories. Maya listened to each one. She didn't record them. She didn't take notes. She just listened. By the end of the afternoon, she had 17 names, 17 students willing to testify, 17 lives that Henderson had tried to destroy. But there was one more witness Maya needed, the most important one. Wednesday, 4:45 p.m. Kimberly Harris sat alone in a coffee shop on the edge of town. She had been avoiding calls for days, avoiding social media, avoiding everything. Maya slid into the booth across from her. Kimberly looked up. Her eyes went wide with fear. "I don't want any trouble. I was just doing what Bradley told me. I didn't know." "I'm not here to hurt you," Maya said quietly. "I'm here to give you a chance." Kimberly's hands trembled around her coffee cup. "What kind of chance?" "The chance to tell the truth." Kimberly shook her head rapidly. "I can't. If I testify, everyone will know. They'll hate me. My parents will. Your parents already know. The whole school knows." Maya leaned forward. "Kimberly, you planted that watch in my bag. You helped frame me for a crime I didn't commit. You stood there while Bradley assaulted me and you said nothing." Kimberly's face crumpled. "I was scared. You don't understand what it's like. Bradley controlled everything. If you weren't with him, you were against him. And if you were against him, I know exactly what it's like," Maya said. "I lived it. I got suspended, beaten, and humiliated because no one had the courage to stand up." She reached across the table and took Kimberly's hands. "But it's different now. Bradley is on our side. Crawford is in prison. Henderson is going to face justice. The only question is whether she faces all of it." Kimberly looked at her with tears in her eyes. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to tell the truth. All of it. Not just what Bradley told you to do, but what Henderson told you. I want you to testify about the meetings, the planning, the coordination. She'll destroy me. She's already destroyed Kimberly. The only power she has left is the power we give her." Kimberly stared at her hands. "Why are you being nice to me after what I did?" Maya was quiet for a moment. "Because holding on to anger is like carrying a weight that only hurts me. Because my mother taught me that forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from the burden of hate." She squeezed Kimberly's hands. "And because I believe people can change. I believe you're better than the choice you made. I believe you can still do the right thing." Kimberly's shoulders shook with silent sobs. "I'll testify," she whispered. "I'll tell them everything." Thursday, 9:00 a.m. The federal courthouse was packed. News had spread about the additional witnesses. 23 people were scheduled to testify against Patricia Henderson. 23 stories of discrimination, manipulation, and abuse. Henderson sat at the defendant's table, her lawyers flanking her like bodyguards. She had aged a decade in the past week. Her designer clothes hung loose on her frame. Her hair was unkempt. But her eyes were still calculating, still looking for an advantage. The first witness was called. Marcus Chen took the stand. "State your name for the record." "Marcus Chen. I was a student at Jefferson Academy from 2019 to 2022. "And what is your relationship to the defendant?" Marcus looked at Henderson. "She was my AP English teacher. She was also the person who destroyed my college prospects." Henderson's lawyer objected. "Speculation." "Overruled. Continue." Marcus took a breath. "I was a straight-A student. top of my class. I had a perfect GPA until junior year. Then suddenly my English grades started dropping. B's became C's. C's became D's. Did Mrs. Henderson give you any explanation? She said my writing lacked sophistication. She said I was reaching beyond my capabilities. Marcus's voice hardened. What she didn't say was that 3 of the students she was boosting, students whose parents donated heavily to the school, were all competing with me for the same limited spots at Ivy League schools. Henderson's lawyer stood again. Objection. The witness is drawing conclusions. Sustained. Stick to the facts, Mr. Chen. Marcus nodded. But the damage was done. The jury was listening. One by one, the witnesses told their stories. Destiny Jackson testified about the recommendation letter that was lost in the system. Miguel Rodriguez testified about being told his cultural perspective made his writing biased. Sarah Okonkwo testified about being labeled a troublemaker after reporting harassment. Each story was different. Each story was devastating. And then Kimberly Harris took the stand. Henderson's face went pale. State your name for the record. Kimberly Harris. I'm a current student at Jefferson Academy. And what is your connection to this case? Kimberly's hands shook, but her voice was steady. I was part of the conspiracy to frame Maya Williams. I planted Senator Crawford's watch in her backpack on Bradley Crawford's instructions. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. And was anyone else involved in this plan? Kimberly looked directly at Henderson. Mrs. Henderson gave me the locker room access. She told me exactly where to put the watch. She said it needed to be in the front pocket so she could find it quickly during the search. Henderson lunged to her feet. That's a lie. She's lying. The judge slammed his gavel. Mrs. Henderson, you will remain seated and silent, or you will be removed from this courtroom. Henderson's lawyers pulled her back down. She was shaking with rage. Kimberly continued. Mrs. Henderson also told me what to say if anyone asked. She said if I cooperated, she would make sure my grades stayed perfect. She said if I didn't. Kimberly's voice faltered. What did she say would happen if you didn't cooperate? She said she would destroy me the same way she destroyed Maya. She said no one would believe a scholarship student over a tenured teacher. She said I would end up at community college working at a gas station for the rest of my life. The courtroom was silent. Henderson sat frozen, her face a mask of barely controlled fury. No further questions. Thursday, 2:15 p.m. The prosecution called its final witness. Maya Williams took the stand. The courtroom fell completely silent. She sat straight in the witness chair, her hands folded in her lap. The bruise on her cheek had faded, but the butterfly bandage on her lip was still visible. State your name for the record. Maya Elizabeth Williams. And you are the primary victim in this case? I am. Ms. Williams, in your own words, can you describe your experience at Jefferson Academy? Maya looked out at the crowded courtroom. She saw her father in the front row, his face taut with emotion. She saw Bradley in the back, flanked by FBI agents. She saw Earl Thompson, still wearing his maintenance uniform. And she saw Mrs. Patricia Henderson, staring at her with undisguised hatred. I enrolled at Jefferson Academy on a scholarship, Maya began. My mother died of cancer when I was 10. My father is a 4-star general in the United States Army. He spent most of my life deployed overseas, protecting people he'll never meet. Her voice was steady. When I started at Jefferson, I believed it was a place where hard work would be rewarded, where intelligence mattered more than money, where I could become the person my mother wanted me to be. She paused. I was wrong. Maya looked directly at Henderson. From my first day, Mrs. Henderson made it clear that I didn't belong. She called on me less than other students. She graded my work more harshly. She made small comments about my clothes, my hair, my neighborhood that let me know I was different. Lesser. Henderson's lawyer scribbled notes. But the real targeting started when my grades began to rise. when I started competing with the wealthy students for top rankings. That's when Mrs. Henderson decided I needed to be stopped. Can you describe specific instances of discrimination? Maya nodded. She tore up my essay in front of the entire class. An essay about my father, a four-star general, because she didn't believe someone like me could have a father like him. Maya's voice cracked slightly. She called me a liar. She said I was inventing a father figure to fill a void. She mocked my mother, a woman who spent 3 years fighting cancer just to watch me finish elementary school. The courtroom was absolutely still. When I tried to defend my mother's memory, she called it violent conduct and had me suspended. She framed me for stealing a watch I never touched. And when Bradley Crawford beat me behind the bleachers, Maya's eyes locked onto Henderson's. She stood at her window and watched. I screamed for help. I begged her to save me. And she closed the blinds. She closed the blinds, and she smiled. Henderson's mask finally cracked. I did not smile. That's a fabrication. The satellite photo doesn't prove Mrs. Henderson. The judge slammed his gavel. You are out of order. But Henderson was on her feet, pointing at Maya. She's lying, just like she lied about her father. Just like she lies about everything. She is a manipulator and a fraud. And 2 bailiffs moved toward Henderson. I dedicated my life to that school 23 years. And this girl, nobody from the ghetto, she's going to destroy everything The bailiffs grabbed Henderson's arms. Remove her, the judge ordered. As Henderson was dragged toward the exit, she twisted around to look at Maya one last time. You think you've won, Henderson screamed. You think this is over. I know who you are. Maya Williams, I know what you are, and one day, everyone else will see it too. One day. The doors slammed shut behind her. The courtroom buzzed with shock. The judge called for order. We will take a 30-minute recess. Ms. Williams, you are excused. Maya stepped down from the witness stand on shaking legs. Her father was there immediately, wrapping his arms around her. I'm proud of you, soldier, he whispered. So proud. Maya buried her face in his chest. Is it over? Almost, Williams said. Almost. Thursday, 5:30 p.m. The jury took less than 2 hours to deliberate. When they filed back into the courtroom, Patricia Henderson was already seated at the defendant's table, her wrists in handcuffs. Her outburst had destroyed any remaining sympathy. The foreman stood. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find guilty? On the count of civil rights violations under color of law, guilty. On the count of accessory to assault, guilty. Henderson's head dropped. On the count of racketeering, guilty. Each word hit like a hammer blow. On the count of evidence tampering, guilty. The judge turned to Henderson. Mrs. Henderson, please rise for sentencing. Henderson stood on trembling legs. Patricia Henderson, you have been found guilty on all counts. You abused your position of trust. You systematically destroyed the futures of students who were supposed to be under your care. You participated in a criminal conspiracy spanning decades, and you smiled while a student was beaten. The judge's voice was ice. I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison to be served without possibility of parole. You are hereby stripped of your teaching license permanently. Your pension is forfeited and will be distributed among your victims. Henderson swayed. Additionally, you are barred from ever working with minors again in any capacity. The bailiffs moved to take her away. Henderson turned to look at the gallery one last time. Her eyes found Maya. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then, Henderson's face crumpled. The arrogance, the hatred, the cruelty, it all dissolved into something that almost looked like grief. I used to be a good teacher, Henderson whispered. Before Crawford. Before the money. I used to believe in education. I used to believe in children. She shook her head. I don't know when I became this. I don't know when I stopped seeing students and started seeing obstacles." The bailiffs pulled at her arms. "I'm sorry," Henderson said, her voice breaking. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." She was led away. Maya watched her go. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel victorious. She felt empty, and somehow that emptiness felt like peace. Friday, 10:30 a.m. One more hearing remained. Senator Richard Crawford stood before a federal judge for sentencing. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by an orange jumpsuit. His political allies were gone, replaced by empty seats. His son sat in the gallery. Bradley had requested permission to attend. He said he needed closure. The judge read the charges. "Richard Crawford, you have been found guilty of federal racketeering, bribery, conspiracy to commit assault, obstruction of justice, and multiple civil rights violations." Crawford stood with his head bowed. "You used your power and your wealth to corrupt an educational institution. You paid teachers to destroy children's futures. You ordered the assault of a minor and arranged to cover it up." The judge's voice rose. "You have dishonored your office. You have betrayed the public trust. You have demonstrated a pattern of behavior that reveals a complete absence of moral character." Crawford didn't respond. "I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison. Additionally, you are permanently barred from holding public office. Your assets are frozen pending civil litigation from your victims." Crawford finally looked up. His eyes found Bradley in the gallery. Father and son stared at each other. For 17 years, Bradley had feared that look, had craved its approval, had shaped his entire identity around earning it. Now, he felt nothing. "I hope it was worth it, Bradley," Crawford said, his voice hollow. "I hope destroying your family was worth impressing a girl." Bradley stood up. "You destroyed our family, Dad. I just stopped pretending it was whole." Crawford was led away in chains. Bradley watched until the doors closed. Then he turned and walked out of the courtroom. Maya was waiting in the hallway. They looked at each other for a long moment. "How do you feel?" Maya asked. Bradley considered the question. "Free," he said finally. "For the first time in my life, I feel free." Maya nodded. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. Start over, I guess. Figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be what he wanted." Bradley looked at her. "What about you?" Maya thought about her father, about Earl Thompson, about the 17 witnesses who had finally told their stories. "I'm going to finish what I started. I'm going back to school. I'm going to graduate at the top of my class. I'm going to get into the best college I can." She straightened her shoulders. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure what happened to me never happens to anyone else." Bradley smiled. It was the first genuine smile she had ever seen on his face. "If anyone can do it, you can." He extended his hand. Maya looked at it. The hand that had hit her. The hand that had destroyed her photograph. The hand that had finally risen in court to tell the truth. She took it. "Good luck, Bradley." "Good luck, Maya." They shook hands. Then they walked in opposite directions toward different futures carrying different burdens. But both of them were finally truly free. 6 months later, Maya Williams stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the collar of her graduation gown. The royal blue fabric felt heavier than she expected, not from the weight of the polyester, but from the weight of everything it represented. 6 months ago, she had been suspended, beaten, left bleeding behind the bleachers of a school that had tried to destroy her. Today, she was graduating at the top of her class. Her father appeared in the doorway. "You ready, soldier?" Maya turned to face him. General Marcus Williams was in full dress uniform, his chest covered in medals, his 4 stars gleaming on each shoulder. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Good." Williams walked toward her and placed his hands on her shoulders. "Nervousness means you care. It means this matters to you. What if I mess up my speech? Then you mess up, and then you keep going." William smiled. That's what soldiers do. Maya took a deep breath. Mom would have loved to see this. William's expression softened. She's watching, Maya. I promise you, she's watching. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait until after the ceremony, but I think you should have this now. Maya opened the box. Inside was a simple gold locket. She recognized it immediately. Mom's locket. She wore it every day, even in the hospital, even at the end. Williams's voice grew thick. She told me to give it to you when you earned it, when you became the woman she knew you could be. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I think you've earned it, William said quietly. Maya lifted the locket from the box. She opened it carefully. Inside was a tiny photograph of her mother on one side. On the other, in her mother's handwriting, were 3 words. Be brave, soldier. Maya clutched the locket to her chest. Thank you, Dad. Williams pulled her into a hug. Your mother was the strongest person I ever knew, he whispered, until I watched you, until I saw what you survived, what you overcame. He pulled back and looked at her face. You're her daughter, Maya. Every single day you prove it. The graduation ceremony was held in the new auditorium at Jefferson Academy. The old administration was gone. Principal Morrison had resigned in disgrace. Half the faculty had been replaced. The school board had been completely restructured. But the building remained, and today it would witness something it had never seen before. Maya Williams sat in the front row with her fellow graduates. She could feel the eyes on her, some curious, some admiring, some still hostile. Not everyone had forgiven her for what happened. Not everyone believed she was the victim. Maya didn't care anymore. The new principal, Dr. Angela Foster, took the podium. Good morning, families and friends. Today we celebrate the graduation of Jefferson Academy's class of 2024. Polite applause. But before we begin, I want to acknowledge something important. This past year has been one of tremendous upheaval for our school. We have confronted painful truths about our institution's failures. We have reckoned with the harm caused by those who were supposed to protect our students. Dr. Foster looked directly at Maya. And we have witnessed extraordinary courage. The courage to tell the truth when lying would have been easier. The courage to stand up when staying silent would have been safer. The courage to believe in justice when the whole world seemed determined to deny it. She paused. It is my honor to introduce our valedictorian, a student who has demonstrated academic excellence, personal integrity, and a strength of character that inspires us all. Dr. Foster smiled. Please welcome Maya Elizabeth Williams. The applause was thunderous. Maya rose from her seat. Her legs felt unsteady, but she forced them forward. Step by step, she climbed to the podium. She looked out at the crowd. She saw her father in the front row, tears streaming down his face. She saw Earl Thompson, the janitor, who had saved her, wearing a new suit for the first time in 30 years. She saw Marcus Chen Destiny, Jackson Miguel Rodriguez, and all the other students who had finally told their stories. And in the back row, she saw Bradley Crawford. He had kept his promise. He had testified against his father. He had completed his community service. He had enrolled in a different school across town, determined to rebuild his life from scratch. He hadn't asked for Maya's forgiveness. He hadn't asked for anything. But he had come today, to witness what he had helped make possible. Maya took a breath. 6 months ago, I stood in a classroom in this very building. I read an essay about my father, a 4-star general, and was told I was a liar. My paper was torn to pieces. My dignity was shredded along with it. The auditorium was absolutely silent. I was framed for a crime I didn't commit. I was suspended for defending my mother's memory. I was beaten behind the bleachers while a teacher watched and smiled. Maya's voice grew stronger. The people who did those things believed they had power. They believed their money, their connections, their positions made them untouchable. They believed they could destroy anyone who threatened their comfortable lives. She paused. They were wrong. Maya looked at her father. My father taught me that honor is a quiet thing. It's not about medals or ranks or recognition. It's about what you do when no one is watching. It's about who you are when everything is stripped away. She looked at Earl Thompson. Honor is a janitor who saves papers from the trash because he believes every child deserves a fair chance. Honor is spending years collecting evidence, knowing that someday the truth would matter. She looked at the other students. Honor is finally telling your story, even when you're scared. Even when no one has believed you before. Even when the people who hurt you seem invincible. Maya's voice rose. I stand here today, not because I'm special. Not because I'm stronger or smarter or braver than anyone else. I stand here because I refuse to let them change who I am. She straightened her shoulders. They tried to make me believe I was nothing. They tried to convince me that people like me don't belong in places like this. They tried to break my spirit until there was nothing left but shame. Maya shook her head. But they couldn't, because my mother, who died when I was 10 years old, taught me something they could never understand. She taught me that your worth doesn't come from your bank account, or your zip code, or the color of your skin. It comes from inside, from the choices you make, from the person you decide to become. She touched the locket at her throat. My mother told me to be brave, to be good, to hold on to the truth even when lies seem easier. And that's what I did. That's what we did. Everyone who came forward, everyone who told their story, everyone who chose justice over convenience. Maya looked out at the crowd. To the students in this room who have been bullied, discriminated against, made to feel less than, I see you. I was you, and I need you to hear this. You are not alone. Your story matters. Your voice matters, and anyone who tells you otherwise is the one who doesn't belong. She took a final breath. Class of 2024, we are entering a world that isn't always fair. A world where power often seems more important than truth. A world where the easy path is to stay silent, fit in, look away. Maya's voice rang with conviction. But we have a choice. Every single day we have a choice. We can be the people who close the blinds when someone needs help. Or we can be the people who open the door. She looked at Bradley in the back row. We can stay trapped by our worst moments, or we can choose to become something better. Maya raised her chin. I choose better. I choose truth. I choose honor. She paused. And I hope you'll choose it too. She stepped back from the podium. For a moment, silence. Then Earl Thompson rose to his feet, applauding with tears streaming down his weathered face. General Williams stood next. Then Marcus Chen. Then Destiny Jackson. Then student after student, parent after parent, teacher after teacher. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet. The applause was deafening. Maya stood at the podium, the sound washing over her, and for the first time in 6 months, she felt the weight finally lift. After the ceremony, Maya found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Students she had never spoken to shook her hand. Parents she had never met hugged her and thanked her for speaking up. But there was one conversation she needed to have. She found Bradley standing alone near the exit, his hands shoved in his pockets, looking uncertain. You came, Maya said. Bradley nodded. I wasn't sure if I should, if you'd want me here. I didn't expect you. I know. He looked at the floor. I just needed to see it. To see you up there. To know that something good came out of all of this. Maya studied his face. He looked different than he had 6 months ago. Thinner, older, more human. How are you? She asked. Surviving. Bradley shrugged. New school. No friends. Everyone knows who I am, what I did. He laughed bitterly. Turns out being the senator's son who betrayed his father isn't exactly a social advantage. Are you okay with that? Bradley thought about the question. Yeah, he said finally. I am. Because for the first time in my life, the person people see is actually me. Not my dad's version of me. Not the mask I wore to survive. Just me. He looked at her. That's worth something, even if it's lonely. Maya nodded slowly. My mom used to say that the truth is the only thing that sets you free. I didn't really understand what she meant until this year. She sounds like she was smart. She was everything. Maya touched her locket. She still is. They stood in silence for a moment. I need to ask you something, Bradley said finally. And I need you to be honest with me. Okay? Do you think I can ever be a good person after everything I did? His voice cracked. Or am I always going to be the kid who hit you? The kid who planted evidence? The kid who... Bradley. He stopped. Maya looked at him with steady eyes. My mom told me that we all have two wolves inside us. One is darkness, one is light. The one that wins is the one you feed. She stepped closer. You spent 17 years feeding the wrong wolf. You did terrible things. You hurt people, including me. That's real. That happened. And you have to carry that for the rest of your life. Bradley flinched. But you also made a different choice. When it mattered most, when it would have been easy to stay silent, you told the truth. You destroyed your own father to do the right thing. Maya's voice softened. That doesn't erase what you did. Nothing ever will. But it proves that you have both wolves inside you. It proves you're capable of choosing light. She stepped back. The person you become from here is up to you. Not your father. Not your past. You. Bradley's eyes glistened. I don't know how to do that. I don't know who I am without all the lies. Then figure it out. Start from zero. Make mistakes. Learn from them. Choose better every single day. Maya extended her hand. That's what the rest of us do. Bradley looked at her hand. Then he took it. Thank you, Maya, for everything. Don't thank me. Just prove me right. She turned and walked away. Bradley watched her go. Then he wiped his eyes and walked out into the sunlight toward a future he would have to build himself. Later that afternoon, Maya and her father drove to Arlington National Cemetery. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the endless rows of white headstones. Heroes from 100 wars lay in perfect formation, their service honored by a grateful nation. Maya's mother wasn't a soldier, but General Williams had pulled every string he could to have her buried here among the fallen, because in his eyes she was the bravest warrior he had ever known. They walked in silence down the winding paths until they reached a simple white stone. Captain Elizabeth Williams, M.D., beloved wife and mother, 1978-2018. Maya knelt in the grass. She placed her graduation cap against the headstone. Her golden honor cords draped beside it. I did it, Mom, she whispered. I graduated. Top of my class, valedictorian. Her voice trembled. I wish you could have been there. I wish you could have seen Dad in his uniform crying like a baby. I wish you could have heard me give my speech. She touched the cold marble. But I know you were watching. Somehow I know. General Williams stood behind his daughter, giving her space. His own eyes were wet. They tried so hard to break me, Mom. They tore up my essay. They called me a liar. They hit me and framed me and tried to make me believe I was nothing. Maya's jaw tightened. But I remembered what you taught me. Be brave, be good, hold on to the truth. And I did. I held on even when it hurt. Even when I wanted to give up. She pulled the locket from beneath her gown. Dad gave me your locket today. The one you wore every day. The one that says, "Be brave, soldier." She opened it and looked at her mother's photograph. I was brave, Mom. I was brave for you. Tears streamed down her face. I miss you so much. Every single day. There are so many things I want to tell you. So many questions I want to ask. So many moments I wish you could share. She closed the locket and pressed it to her heart. But I know you're proud of me. I can feel it. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Maya stood up slowly. General Williams stepped forward and put his arm around her shoulders. They stood together in silence, father and daughter, looking down at the woman who had shaped them both. She would be so proud, William said quietly. Prouder than words can say. I know, Dad. You're going to do great things, Maya. I've always known it. But this year proved it beyond any doubt. Maya leaned into her father's embrace. What happens now? Now? William smiled. Now you go to college. Stanford Wright, full scholarship. Yeah. Maya laughed softly. Full scholarship to Stanford. Can you believe it? I absolutely can. You earned every bit of it. They began walking back toward the car, leaving the graduation cap and cords behind as an offering. Dad? Yeah. Thank you for coming when I needed you, for believing me when no one else did. William stopped walking. He turned to face his daughter. Maya, I spent most of your life deployed overseas. I missed birthdays, school plays, parent-teacher conferences. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself I was protecting you by protecting the country. His voice broke. But when I saw you lying in the mud, beaten and bleeding, I realized I had failed the most important mission of my life. I wasn't there to protect you when you needed me most. Dad, that wasn't your fault. Let me finish. Williams took a breath. What I'm trying to say is I'm retiring. Maya's eyes went wide. Retiring? But you're a 4-star general. You've served for 32 years. I've given the army enough. Williams smiled. It's time I gave my daughter the rest. Maya stared at him. You're serious? I've already submitted the paperwork. My last day is August 1st, just in time to drive you to Stanford. Maya threw her arms around her father. Dad, I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me embarrass you at freshman orientation. Maya laughed through her tears. Deal. They held each other for a long moment. Then Williams pulled back and looked at the cemetery around them. Your mother asked me once what I would do when the wars were over. I told her I didn't know. I'd been a soldier so long I couldn't imagine being anything else. He looked at Maya. But now I know. I'm going to be your father. Full-time. No more deployments. No more missed moments. Just you and me. Maya squeezed his hand. That sounds perfect, Dad. It does, doesn't it? They walked together toward the cemetery gates, the afternoon sun warming their faces. Behind them, the white headstones stood in silent tribute to those who had served. And somewhere among them, Elizabeth Williams watched over her family, her spirit finally at peace. 1 week later, Maya received an unexpected letter. The envelope was plain. No return address. The handwriting was shaky, unfamiliar. She opened it carefully. Dear Maya, I know I have no right to write to you. I know you probably hate me, and I deserve that. But I needed to say something before I couldn't anymore. I'm dying. The doctors say I have 3 months, maybe less. Prison isn't kind to old women, and the cancer they found is aggressive. But that's not why I'm writing. I'm writing because I need you to understand something. Not to excuse what I did. Nothing could excuse that. But maybe to help you understand how a person becomes a monster. I wasn't always this way. I know that's hard to believe. But there was a time long ago when I became a teacher because I wanted to help children. I believed in education. I believed in potential. Then I met Richard Crawford. He was charming, powerful, everything I thought I wanted. He told me I was special. He told me he would leave his wife for me. He never did. Year after year I waited. I did what he asked. I destroyed students he saw as threats. I rigged grades to protect his son. I told myself it was temporary, that eventually he would love me the way I loved him. But he was using me, just like he used everyone. By the time I realized the truth, I had become someone I didn't recognize. Someone capable of watching a child get beaten and doing nothing. Someone who could smile at another person's pain. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I see now what I couldn't see then. You were never the problem, Maya. You were everything I should have been fighting for. Your strength, your integrity, your refusal to bend. You reminded me of who I used to be, and I hated you for it. I'm sorry. Those words are pathetically inadequate, but they're all I have left. If my life serves any purpose now, maybe it's as a warning. A reminder of what happens when you let fear and loneliness corrupt your soul. When you sell your integrity for the false promise of love. Don't ever let anyone make you less than you are, Maya. Not for money, not for power, not for love. You are extraordinary. I saw it from the first day you walked into my classroom, and I tried to destroy it because I was too broken to let it shine. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. Patricia Henderson. Maya read the letter 3 times. She didn't cry. She didn't feel anger. She felt something she hadn't expected. Pity. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. Then she picked up her phone and called her father. Dad, can you come over? There's something I need to talk through. That night they sat together on the porch of their small rental apartment. Maya showed him the letter. Williams read it in silence. What do you think? Maya asked when he finished. I think she's trying to make peace with herself before the end. I think she wants absolution. Should I give it to her? Williams was quiet for a long moment. That's not my decision, Maya. It's yours. Maya looked up at the stars. Mom used to say that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about letting go of the poison you're carrying inside yourself. Your mother was wise. I'm not sure I can forgive her. Not completely. Not after what she did. No one's asking you to. Maya turned to face her father. But I think I can let go. I think I can stop carrying her around with me. I think I can move forward without dragging her hatred behind me. Williams nodded. That's more than most people can do. Is it enough? It's everything. Williams put his hand over hers. Holding on to hatred doesn't hurt the person you hate. It only hurts you. Your mother knew that. And now you know it too. Maya looked at the letter one more time. Then she stood up, walked to the small fire pit in the corner of their patio, and dropped the letter into the flames. She watched it burn. Goodbye, Mrs. Henderson, she whispered. The paper curled and blackened, carrying decades of hatred up into the night sky. And for the first time, Maya felt truly free. 3 years later, Maya Elizabeth Williams stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. She was 20 years old now, a junior at Stanford studying education policy with a minor in civil rights law. Today she was testifying before a congressional committee about educational equity and anti-discrimination measures in public schools. The committee room was packed with journalists, activists, and policymakers. And in the front row, wearing civilian clothes for the first time, Maya could remember sat General Marcus Williams, retired. Maya looked at the members of Congress. 3 years ago, I was a 16-year-old girl who dared to write an essay about her father. For that, I was called a liar. My work was destroyed. I was framed for theft, suspended from school, and physically assaulted. She paused. The adults who were supposed to protect me became my persecutors. The institution that was supposed to educate me became my prison. Maya's voice grew stronger. But I was lucky. My father was a 4-star general with the resources to fight back. We had access to military lawyers, federal investigators, satellite surveillance technology. We had power that most families will never have. She leaned forward. What about the students who don't have that? What about the children whose parents work 2 jobs and can't take time off to fight the system? What about the kids whose families don't speak English, don't know their rights, don't have anyone to believe them? She looked at each committee member in turn. The system I experienced wasn't an anomaly. It was a symptom. Across this country, students are being discriminated against because of their race, their economic status, their family background. Their grades are manipulated. Their voices are silenced. Their futures are stolen. Maya held up a thick document. This is the Maya Williams Education Equity Act. It would establish independent oversight boards for all schools receiving federal funding. It would mandate annual audits of grading practices. It would create protected channels for student complaints. It would require body cameras for all administrative interactions with students. She set the document down. It would make sure that what happened to me never happens to another child. She took a breath. 3 years ago, I stood alone behind the bleachers of Jefferson Academy bleeding, while a teacher watched and smiled. I thought no one would ever believe me. I thought my voice didn't matter. Her voice rang with conviction. I was wrong. My voice mattered. And so does the voice of every student sitting in a classroom right now, wondering if anyone sees them, wondering if anyone cares. Maya straightened her shoulders. Honor isn't about having power. It's about using power to protect those who don't. It's about standing up when everyone else sits down. It's about telling the truth when lies are easier. She looked directly at the cameras. To every child watching this who has been told they don't belong, you belong. To every student who has been called a liar, your truth matters. To every young person who has been beaten down by a system that should have lifted you up, keep fighting, keep speaking, keep believing. Maya's voice rose. Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice, not on its own. It bends because people like you and me pull it. With every truth we tell, with every stand we take, with every moment we choose courage over fear. She paused. My mother taught me to be brave. My father taught me that honor is what you do when no one is watching. And my experience taught me that the only way forward is through. Maya looked at her father in the front row. He was crying, smiling, prouder than she had ever seen him. My name is Maya Elizabeth Williams. I am the daughter of General Marcus Williams and Captain Elizabeth Williams. I am a survivor. I am a fighter. And I am just getting started. She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted in applause. Committee members rose to their feet. Journalists captured every moment. Activists wiped tears from their eyes. And in the front row, General Marcus Williams, retired, watched his daughter change the world. Just like her mother always knew she would. That evening, Maya and her father walked through the National Mall as the sun set over the monuments. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying each other's presence. You were incredible today, Williams finally said. I was terrified. Couldn't tell. Maya laughed. Fake it till you make it right. They stopped near the Lincoln Memorial. You know, Williams said, looking up at the massive statue, when I was a young soldier, I used to come here. I would look at Lincoln's words carved into the walls, and wonder if I would ever do anything that mattered, anything that lasted. He turned to his daughter. I spent 32 years serving my country. I led troops in 7 combat zones. I made decisions that affected thousands of lives. His voice softened. But the thing I'm proudest of, the legacy that matters most. He put his hands on Maya's shoulders. It's you. It was always you. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Dad, your mother knew it from the moment you were born. She said you had something special. Something that would change the world. William smiled. She was right. She was always right. Maya hugged her father. They stood there together in the shadow of Abraham Lincoln as the last light of day faded into night. Behind them, the words carved in stone seemed to glow. With malice toward none, with charity for all. Maya pulled back and looked at her father. What now? William smiled. Now. Now you keep going. You keep fighting. You keep making your mother proud. And you. I'll be right beside you, every step of the way, until my last breath. Maya took her father's hand. They turned and walked together toward the future. Behind them, the monument stood witness to their passing. The Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Monument, the Capitol building where Maya had just testified. Symbols of a nation built on impossible dreams. Dreams that became real because ordinary people refused to give up. Maya Williams had been called a liar. She had been beaten. She had been told she didn't belong. But she had never stopped believing in the truth. And in the end, the truth had set her free. She was no longer the broken girl behind the bleachers. She was Maya Elizabeth Williams, daughter of heroes, survivor of injustice, voice of the voiceless. And her story was just beginning. Because honor isn't something you inherit, it isn't something you buy. Honor is what remains when they have taken everything else. And Maya Williams had proven beyond any doubt that honor would always stand.